Garden Warfare 2 is a game I care about very deeply. There are so many characters, all which are so different and have so much depth. From a surface level, it may not seem it, but if you really do in-depth analyses, which is what I love doing, the game has an extreme amount of depth, and there is a way to rank all the characters. However, the normal tier list format does not work for this game. For example, you cannot put a foot soldier against a peashooter in a tier list. Tier lists simply are a no-go for this game. I've made a tier list before, but they really just do not make sense in the context of the game. It makes much more sense to rank each variant for each class and compare them against the other variants in the class. For example, the peashooter class comparing the fire pea versus the regular peashooter. That makes a lot more sense than comparing a fire pea to a random engineer. A little bit about me. I have thousands of hours on this game, and I've gotten 100 kills with every single one of these characters, all by myself with no healers in the lobby. So I've tried to push these characters to the absolute limit, as well as being very experimental with abilities and upgrades. My video last year went over each character pretty briefly, but I think this video I would like to give every single character their time to shine and really go in depth over every single character and show what they have to offer, as well as explaining some tips and why some are better or worse than other variants. The way this is going to work is I'm going to have a list of all the characters for each class. 10 out of 10 means it perfectly executes what the character should be doing. Before I introduce each class, I'm going to talk about what the class is really strong at, what the weaknesses are, as well as the individual variants' weaknesses. The lower the score out of 10 is the lower reason to choose that variant over the other ones. Every character does have a niche, and even characters that are seen as bad still have things that are really good about them, so a normal tier list really does not make sense. So I hope you guys enjoy the ranking. It really takes 1 second to hit the subscribe button and the like button. It'll really mean a lot since I put a lot of work into these videos, and let's get right into it. Alright, the first class we're going to be talking about is the peashooter class. So let's go over what this class is good at. This class has the best mobility in the entire game with the hyper, and using the tech called beam jumping, you can fly and go really high across the map. P-gatling is a great counter to mechs as well, which some of the peashooters struggle to shoot against. Let's talk about the first 15 out of 10 characters. Yes, that's right. These 4 peashooters are so good they are considered 15 out of 10 characters. Starting off with the plasma pea. Also, I want to mention, just because the plasma pea is all the way to the left does not mean he's better than the agent pea, law pea, electro pea. These are all 15 out of 10 characters, and this applies to the entire tier list. Whatever character is in the certain category, it means they are that number out of 10. It is not ordered in there. The only ordering is if they're in different layers. Alright, let's talk a bit about why the Plasma Pea is insanely overpowered. So the Plasma Pea is a charge character. As you can see, he charges up, he shoots out, and it explodes. Does an insane amount of damage, but the thing that's busted about this character is that he can charge while he moves around, while he jumps, and his charges only take up 1 ammo. As you can see, when it explodes, that also all does splash damage. So if someone's hiding behind a corner right there, you could charge it up, it'll explode, and it'll hurt everyone behind that corner. You also do not have to use the charge shots, and you could just spam the uncharged shots, and it's pretty much a machine gun. It does a ton of damage, and those have splash as well. So if someone's hiding behind a quarter, you could use that as well. This character is a great counter to mechs. This character destroys every single character in the game, including high health characters, and is the best peashooter from long range. You could go on top of a roof and you could snipe people with this character. And combined with the dark beam bomb movement techs, this character is just absurd and is just really overpowered, and in some cases is the best character in the entire game. Let's move on to our next peashooter, which is the Agent P. The Agent P is a glass cannon type character. If you're unaware of what that means, is if you look at the bottom left, he has less health than all the other peashooters at 100. With the health upgrade, he has 110. This character actually has the highest damage output out of any primary in the entire game, excluding mech primaries. He rewards you for getting headshots and can kill everything almost instantly. Every single character in the game can get absolutely shredded by this thing. He's great from all ranges, as well as having the movement abilities, like I said, like Plasma Pea, pair it with a broken primary, pairs extremely well. With mechs, his primary cannot really be that good at countering them because the mechs cannot take critical damage, so that's why P-Gatling is a really nice ability to have, as it's a great counter to mechs. This character is weak to fire damage because he is quite low on health and he's very fragile, but that doesn't mean he's bad at all. In some cases, he is also the best character in the game. Next character we're going to be talking about is the Law P. The Law P is actually quite similar to the Agent P. Law P fires as fast as you can press the trigger. He has 6 ammo, as his weapon is called the 6 shooter, and he has the fastest time to kill out of any of the peashooters. That is if you're shooting at perfect CPS, which is actually very easy to. He does have a bit of accuracy issues from range, but that doesn't mean he's bad from range at all. If you learn to play him at range, he's actually very, very strong at range. While he doesn't have the same amount as constant pressure as the Agent P, he does have more health and he is actually really good against mechs compared to the Agent P. This character can 2-burst any character in the game, including high health characters. Really, really overpowered, and as I said, since he has the beam bomb and hyper abilities, he can approach anywhere he wants, he could fly across the map, and he has a busted primary. Equals a 15 out of 10 overpowered character. Alright, the next character is my personal favorite plant, Electro P. I love this character. So little known fact about this character is he is actually faster than all the other peashooters. He has a speed bonus. Why he has a speed bonus, I really don't know, but he does have a speed bonus. As well as him being a detonation character, which you could shoot out the bullet, and whenever you have good depth perception, and you see an enemy near the bullet, you could pull the trigger and you could detonate the bullet, and it has a big explosion. This character does a ton of damage and has the best group control out of any character in the entire game. As he is called Electro P, he does do electric damage as well. So he has great group control with that, but even then, just his regular detonation explosions have insane group control and do a ton of damage. He does struggle a bit against higher health opponents such as superheroes and all-stars being his very difficult matchups, but other characters, and even with those characters, if you play your cards correctly, you can pretty much destroy anything in the game. And since he is faster than all the other peashooters with hyper, he is an absolute monster. He could fly across the map. Character's really good, really fun. I love EP. And yeah, so EP, 15 out of 10 character. This is the last 15 out of 10 character we're going to be talking about for this entire video. Alrighty, let's talk about the regular peashooter next. The regular peashooter is a top tier character, but he is just not as busted as the other 4 overpowered peashooters. He is still absolutely broken though. Let's talk a bit about him. Regular peashooter has a great rate of fire. He also has splash damage, like pretty much all the other peashooter has. He has great damage output, he has a very fast reload, as well as his upgrades being very customizable. He has a very solid primary overall, and has very, very solid time to kills. The only problem with this character is that he is just kind of outclassed by the Plasma P in every single way. He is still a great pick, however, and is a lot of fun. And his upgrades being very customizable makes him a great pick. And let's move on to the 9 out of 10 peashooters. Starting off with the Fire P. The reason these are 9 out of 10 is because they have certain weaknesses. For example, if you don't know, Scientist heal stations can cancel out elements. So if you shoot someone with Fire P and they have a heal station next to them, they're not going to take much damage. But however, if you're not fighting a character that's being healed, Fire P is an amazing damage over time character. This character is still a top tier. His splash can activate damage over time, which fire damage does 25 damage over time. So basically, if you land one shot like that, even if it's splash, the character is going to take 25 damage over time. The character does have a slightly longer reload than the regular peashooter, but he is still better at range than the regular peashooter because of his damage over time not being affected by damage drop-off. A very solid character, and is better than the regular peashooter in certain cases, but due to him not having an even matchup spread like the regular peashooter, he is a 9 out of 10 peashooter. Still a fantastic and solid character all around. The next character is the Toxic P. This is actually quite a famous character. A lot of people that aren't really familiar with Garden Warfare even know what this character is for whatever reason. But anyway, this character is similar to the Fire P, as he has a fast rate of fire, except he has a humongous splash radius, and he actually has very solid damage output for hitting directs. He does have a longer reload than Fire P and does have one of the longest reloads in the entire game, however. His group control is amazing and he's a great chip damage character, and from far away is really strong at taking, if you could hit people for toxic damage, which cancels out regeneration. So he does have a use and he is very good. The only problem with him is that his reload is quite long, but overall he is a very solid 9 out of 10 top tier character. The next character is going to be the Ice P. The Ice P is kind of similar to the other elemental Ps. Of course he does ice damage. He has very fast freeze time, so you could shoot someone a couple times, they freeze into place, and combining that with the Dark Beam Bomb is a really good combo for higher health opponents. If you're playing as a superhero or an all-star, this character is kind of a nightmare to play against. His damage output is lower than the other peashooters due to the ice effect, but he is still a great pick. His reload's a little longer than the regular peashooter as well, but he is still very, very good, as he is a peashooter. All the peashooters are great characters. Alright, the next character we're going to be talking about is the Commando P. The Commando P is worse than the other peashooters at an 8 out of 10 ranking, but he is still a very good high tier character. Commando P has a very fast rate of fire, and he's really good at barrel stuffing. The problem with this character is he doesn't have good group management, as well as him being affected by drop off very hard, meaning that if you're pretty much beyond 30 meters, he is tickling you with a feather. He does no damage, so he's very weak at range. But up close he's very strong, but as I said, his group management is very poor, as his time to kills aren't as impressive as the Agent P. But he is still a high tier character because of his ability set with the beam bombs, Gatling, having hyper, and still having good kill times overall. But compared to the Agent P, he's just very outclassed. He's still a great character, but for a peashooter, he's an 8 out of 10. Alright, the next character is going to be the Rock P, and this is the final peashooter we're going to talk about. This is still a high tier character, Rock P is. All the peashooters are just insanely overpowered. Rock P has more health than all the other peashooters at 150. With the health upgrade, I recommend using that because you could survive imp punts and long bombs. It gives you 160 health. P-Gatling actually gives you armor when you go in it, so this stacks extremely well with Rock P's ability with P-Gatling. This gives him an insane amount of health. His primary is kind of hard to use as it's movement orientated, meaning it's pretty hard to get good at using, but once you get good at using it, it's pretty good. The character also has a very solid reload. The character is slower than the other P-shooters, unfortunately, but that doesn't really hinder him too much in my opinion because he has the hyper ability. He also has more splash than the regular peashooter, so he is good at shooting people behind corners, but I do think his survivability is absolutely insane and nothing to scoff at. A peashooter having good survivability is kind of broken in my opinion. Alrighty guys, the next class and the first zombie class we're going to be talking about is the Soldier class. So the Soldier class is extremely versatile. They are great at all ranges. They have great mobility with their Rocket Leap ability. They have great survivability because they have quite a bit of health. You can put down a stink cloud to hide as well as do damage to people. You could hide in the stink cloud and shoot people. You could put down a stink cloud and then escape. Very, very good. ZPGs are also very solid for taking out high health enemies and rooted plants. So overall, a very solid kit, very versatile, good from all ranges. Let's start out with the 10 out of 10 soldiers, which is the Super Commando and regular soldier. We are actually already playing as the regular soldier. This character is amazing up close, he is amazing from far away, and he is amazing from mid-range, meaning he is extremely versatile and he is good in all scenarios, and I think that is the point of this character. And he does a very good job at that. There's nothing else really to be said. He is pretty much the most basic character in the game. He has everything you want in a character, and he's really good. So yeah, let's move on to the next 10 out of 10 soldier, which is the Super Commando. The Super Commando is pretty similar to the regular soldier, except he has the best reload in the entire game. His weapon is still good at all ranges, and since he has the best reload in the game, he has a constant source of pressure. So very, very powerful and strong. The only issue with him is that you are not able to customize your abilities too much because the best upgrade ability for him is the reload damage. Other than that, he has one of the best primaries in the entire game and is good from all ranges. He's very flawless and is pretty much how good the user is with him explains how good the character is. Alright, the next characters are the 9 out of 10. So these characters are still very good, but they're not quite at the level that the top soldiers are at. Starting off, we have the Sky Trooper. The Sky Trooper is very similar to the regular foot soldier, except he has a faster rate of fire. He actually does more damage than the regular foot soldier up close, but he does run out of ammo quicker. From range, he does about the same damage as the regular foot soldier, but as I said, he runs out of ammo quicker, so that makes him slightly worse. Also, since he runs out of ammo so quickly, you're going to have to run the ammo and reload upgrade, meaning that his upgrades are not very customizable, unlike the regular foot soldier who has very customizable upgrades. So he is still a great character, but he is just kind of outclassed by the regular foot soldier, unfortunately. Alright, the next 9 out of 10 soldier we're going to be talking about is the Camo Ranger. The Camo Ranger is quite different than the other foot soldiers. He is great from all ranges like the regular foot soldier, but he is not fully automatic. He does have a very fast rate of fire, however, and he has great accuracy. He has a ton of ammo at 18, but he does not have a damage upgrade, meaning you could run a health or a speed upgrade on him, which are both very good options. He does have quite a long reload, but that doesn't matter much since I said he has 18 ammo. Very accurate, very versatile, and overall a very good character. He is kind of outclassed by the Super Commando in my opinion, but that doesn't mean he's bad at all. He is still a worthy pick, he is still an insane top tier character, he is really good. Highly recommend using him. Moving on to the 8 out of 10 soldiers. General Supremo. So General Supremo is quite similar to the Sky Trooper. General Supremo has a very fast rate of fire, except he is not able to move while he shoots. This isn't really much of an issue. He can also shoot while in the air, so that's also a good thing. His problems are his accuracy is not as good as the Sky Trooper or the Reg Soldier, but he still does have insane damage output and he could fire for quite a long time. So he has insane damage output from all ranges. His accuracy does get kind of bad after a while, but he is very, very powerful. He does a ton of damage, but just not being able to jump or move around as much whenever you shoot is kind of an issue, which makes him kind of outclassed by the Sky Trooper, but his upgrades are more customizable than the Sky Trooper, which is nice because you can run health because you don't need an ammo upgrade on him. But overall, he's a great character, definitely a high top tier character, really, really good, a worthy pick, but it's just only a little lower because he's outclassed. Alright, next is the Scuba Soldier, a very unique character. The Scuba Soldier is very different than all the other soldiers besides one of them. As you can see, he only has 2 ammo, but he shoots very big projectiles. These projectiles are very easy to hit, as I said, they are humongous, so you can shoot people in the air quite easily with them. They also have this sonar effect, which if you shoot down and there's an opponent nearby, it'll show where they are, even if they're behind a wall. Not really the most useful thing in the world, but it's still a cool feature. You could two-shot people very easily with this character, as well as the upgrades being very customizable, because you could run health or speed on him. So you could go 1, 2, and then Stink Cloud, and it'll actually give you a kill. So the character has really good kill times, he does a ton of damage per shot. He's a very unique pick. He's just kind of outclassed by the other soldiers because his projectile speed is slower, as well as him having slower kill times from range. But he is a very solid character up close, very, very good. Definitely worthy of being in the slot he is in. Next, we're going to be talking about the 7 out of 10 soldiers, starting off with the Tank Commander. The Tank Commander is very similar to the character we just talked about, the Scuba Soldier. He only has 1 ammo, however. He could 2-shot 125 health character, so he does have faster kill times on certain characters. However, he is not as customizable with his upgrades as the Scuba Soldier, as you are kind of forced to run double reload damage, similar to the Super Commando. As well as only having 1 shot makes him worse at range than the Scuba Soldier. Missing a shot with this character is highly detrimental. With the Scuba Soldier, you have more of a chance. So this character is kind of a downgrade to the Scuba Soldier in pretty much every way, but he is still a very fun pick and has some slight advantages over the Scuba Soldier, but overall is less consistent and is way worse at range. Let's move on to the next soldier, which is the Centurion. The Centurion is very similar to the Camo Ranger, except he does fire damage. He's very good at chipping away from range as he does damage over time. Each shot you land does 25 extra damage over time, which is nice because that's how fire damage works. He has great accuracy and he's really good at chipping away at people from far away. He has a solid reload, a good amount of ammo, just struggles to kill sometimes because the amount of damage he does isn't too high, but he's really obnoxious and good at bringing people to lower health. He's just an overall solid, good chipping character. Very good. Next character is the Arctic Trooper. The Arctic Trooper is just kind of a strange character in my opinion. He's like the other soldiers, he has quite a bit of ammo, he has a good rate of fire, but from range he barely does any damage. Very bad character from range. But his ice effect is quite good. It's quite annoying because it could slow you down, but he's not really a good kill character from far away. Up close, however, he is pretty great at killing, and his ice effect is really good at disabling abilities. But overall, he's kind of a downgrade compared to the other soldiers, just because if you're really good at aiming, you're just going to get the kill regardless. With this character, you're not doing as much damage, and especially from range, he's pretty awful. But he's still a 7 out of 10 high tier character, but he's just kind of hindered by his lower damage output. He's still really good though. Alright, and the final character is 6 out of 10. This is like a low mid tier character. It's the Park Ranger. The Park Ranger is pretty bad, if I'm being honest. His abilities kind of carry him. His primary is bad because if someone, it's a cloud, so if you're standing in the cloud you'll take damage, but if you just move outside the cloud you won't take damage. Direct per shot, he still does quite a bit of damage, but if someone's moving through the air, you're barely going to do any damage. Tickling them with a feather, basically, kind of like the commando P. If someone is standing still, however, he does a ton of damage, but realistically, no one is going to be standing still unless they're in a drone. But otherwise, the Gatling is still going to take less damage because it has armor, and there's not really a point of using this character because he is just a downgrade to the regular soldier. You could still shoot someone standing still with a regular soldier, doing more damage, because if they move slightly, you're going to do more damage. The character also has not a lot of ammo at all, only 18. He does not have an ammo upgrade. So yeah, this character is not very good in my opinion. Alrighty, next we're going to get started with the Sunflower class, starting off with the 10 out of 10 flowers. So a little bit about the Sunflower class. They're very fast on the ground, they have great movement speed, meaning they pair very well with the speed upgrade. They're able to self-heal with the heal flower, which is really good. They could also heal their heal flower with the beam, as well as other players, so if you're playing with a friend, they make a great pocketing character. They could also revive people faster than all the other characters in the game besides the scientist, because they're the same, and it puts them back to full health as well, so they're really good for reviving people. Their middle ability, the beam, preferably the solar flare beam because it has perfect accuracy and a higher damage output, can be a really good counter to any single character in the game. It does so much damage, I don't know why they put that ability on a healer class character. Speaking of putting weird things on a healer class character, let's talk about the Mystic Flower, the first 10 out of 10 flower on this list. Alrighty, so the Mystic Flower is a charged character similar to the Plasma P. The character does move a little bit slower whenever you charge up, so that is a bit of a problem with the character, but I'll tell you why it doesn't matter. The uncharged shots with the Mystic Flower are insanely overpowered. They do upwards of 100 damage per second, have really good kill times, as well as them being really big projectiles, so they're pretty easy to hit headshots on. They're also a great counter to mechs, and this character absolutely destroys high health opponents. If you see an opponent with lower health, this character just shreds them as well. This character's primary is just absurd, and then of course having the charged shots can mean you could hit people behind corners, but I really think that the main appeal of this character is the uncharged shots. Alrighty, so this is definitely a 10 out of 10 Sunflower, but let's compare her to the other Sunflower, who is the Stuffy Flower. The Stuffy Flower is the next 10 out of 10 flower, and let's talk a bit why. The Stuffy Flower has a really high damage output similar to the Mystic Flower, except she is a fully automatic character. She has an insanely fast projectile speed, actually being faster than the other Sunflower, so she is really hard to dodge the projectiles. Characters with slower projectile speeds can actually be dodged, but this character, if this character looks at you, you're going to die. Whenever you get a kill with this character, you get little sunbursts to drop out as well, which is a really nice bonus because it could stop fire damage. Speaking of stopping fire damage, another thing that's really good about the Sunflower class is putting down a heal flower and collecting the sun drops makes you immune to different elemental effects, and it could cancel out things like fire damage, which means the Sunflower class as a whole is a really good counter to fire characters. But a bit more about the Stuffy Flower. The character is insanely good up close. The extra bonus, like I said, with the sun drops, as well as the character having a good reload time and a great amount of ammo, means this is just the best full auto Sunflower. A really good character. Let's move on to some of the other fully automatic Sunflowers. So in this next tier, the 9 out of 10. Again, all these characters are interchangeable in the tiers. They're all 9 out of 10 characters. They're really good. Let's talk a bit about the Shadow Flower. So the Shadow Flower is very similar to the Stuffy Flower. With that, the character has a really fast fire rate. The character does have more ammo than the Stuffy Flower, but the character does have a pretty long reload, so it's pretty important to run the reload upgrade. The character has a great damage output, but a slower projectile speed than a Stuffy Sunflower, but the character is nothing to scoff at, still doing a ton of damage, still having a really good primary, and overall having a constant amount of pressure. And the amount of ammo and quick fire rate is really good when I talk about constant pressure. This character doesn't really have any flaws other than being outclassed by the Stuffy Flower. Let's talk a bit about the next character, the regular Sunflower. The regular Sunflower and the Shadow Flower are essentially clone characters. They are very similar. Per shot, the regular Sunflower does more damage, but since the Shadow Flower has a high fire rate, they pretty much match evenly with their damage output as a whole. So in all honesty, these two characters are essentially clones. You could pick either one and they are a very good top tier plan. Nothing wrong with this character. Let's move on to the next Sunflower. The next Sunflower we're going to talk about is the Fire Flower. Now this character is a bit different than the other Sunflowers we talked about so far, having a pretty slow projectile speed. But the thing that's interesting about this character is this is a chip damage character. So there's a couple characters on this list that are chip damage characters, and we'll get to some of them, and some of them are insanely good. So the chip damage characters, for example, the Fire Flower, this is a character that's really good for support, maybe the second best support plan in the game. You could chip away at people, making it easy for your teammates to kill someone because you lower their health from the fire damage. You're immune to fire damage, so you could spray out fire damage without taking any. And the character just has that constant pressure, and if you even hit one bullet, they're going to take 25 damage over time because fire damage is an absolutely busted mechanic. This is a great 9 out of 10 character, with the only weakness really being if there's a scientist on their team, they could stop the fire damage. But overall, this is a fantastic character, definitely worth playing. The next character is the Sun Pharaoh. Sun Pharaoh is quite an interesting character. Very similar to the regular Sunflower, except of course it is a burst character. The character can't fire as long as the Sunflower and the Shadow Flower, but the character still has a really good damage output, really good time to kill. Again, great projectile speed, great damage output. There's not a lot of flaws with this character, other than kind of outclassed by the Mystic Flower and the Stuffy Flower, but this is still a great top tier pick, a really good example of what a Sunflower should be. And it's a fun burst character as well. So yeah, a really good character. Let's move on to the next Sunflower. This is a very solid class. If you couldn't tell already, all these characters are really good, besides one of them being kind of mediocre. Let's move on to the 8 out of 10 category. So these are slightly worse than the 9 out of 10 Sunflowers, but they're still great picks. So let's start off with the Power Flower. So this is actually a really cool character in my opinion. The Power Flower has a slower rate of fire than the regular Sunflower, but that doesn't really matter too much because the character has chain damage, and this is probably one of the characters that has the best benefits of chain damage, because this is the only fully automatic chain damage character besides Electro Brains' beam. But from a range, this is the best fully automatic chain damage character. So this character does a ton of damage for groups of people, but I do have to say it is quite situational. The character's damage output is still really good. The character has a ton of ammo, but the character still does less damage overall than the regular sunflowers and the fire flower. So there's not really too much of a reason to pick this one, but it is still a sunflower, it still has a great primary, and you know, chain damage is nice. So this character still has a use, still has a niche, is pretty great, and that's why she belongs in the 8 out of 10 category. Alright, let's move on to the next 8 out of 10 sunflower, which is the alien flower. So the alien flower, in my opinion, is kind of similar to the fire flower. She's a great pocketing character. She's really good at chipping away at people, makes people have to stay on the move. If there's someone standing still, this character just obliterates them because, similar to the park ranger, if you're in the radius of these spores, you'll take damage. This character is good from all ranges, and has a pretty fast reload overall. Very customizable with upgrades as well. Character doesn't really have any flaws other than really the outclass factor to the other sunflowers, but this is still a fantastic pick, has a niche, and is just overall a really solid character. All these sunflowers are amazing. Let's move on to the next one, the metal petal. This is a really interesting character, and I think if this character had a couple of changes, it would be a top tier character, but there's a couple of flaws. The character is slower than all the other sunflowers. That's really the biggest flaw, and as well as the primary weapon not doing as much damage as the regular variant. The character has a whopping 160 HP. With the health upgrade, you'll have 170 HP. That is absolutely insane. That is more than a corn with the health upgrade. This character is an absolute beast. I think this character's main shining point is using the solar flare beam. The solar flare beam, similar to P gives you armor, so if you like the solar flare beam, use the metal petal with the health upgrade, and you could absolutely shred lobbies. This character's survivability is really overpowered as well, because combining this character with the heal flower makes you a self-heal character with 170 HP, and I think you could put 2 and 2 together. Why, that's pretty good. Now the problem with this character is the speed. So being able to heal someone, the character is slow and has trouble keeping up, but does have a niche. If there's a lot of characters that have a lot of health, or if there's a lot of imp punts, this character can survive imp punts, and it can still revive people back to full health. So survivability aspect, this character is really good, but the primary is worse than the regular sunflowers and the stuffy flowers, as well as the speed being a hindrance. So I think this character belongs perfectly in the 8 out of 10 category, a really good character overall. Alright, let's move on to the only 7 out of 10 flower, and that's the vampire flower. And this character is good because it's a sunflower, but the character only has 85 HP, 95 with the health upgrade. The character has a really fast fire rate, similar to the shadow flower, stuffy flower, but the thing is, the primary, it gives you back health when you shoot someone, but at the same time, it's not enough health you're getting back to sustain its low health as a whole. You could kill the vampire flower before she even shoots you because the character has such low HP. If the character had 100 base health and 110 with the health upgrade, I think it would make much more sense, but I think the character is way too fragile and can just easily be killed. The character still has self-heal, still has a decent primary all around, and then of course solar flare beam is a really good ability, and being able to revive people. Just being a sunflower kind of carries this character, and she still is good overall, but just her low HP makes her really fragile and extremely easy to kill. Alrighty guys, the next class we're going to be moving on is the scientist class. I think it makes sense to talk about this class next because they're pretty much the parallel to the sunflower class, except not really. Most of the scientist class is a shotgun, with the exception of the astronaut and the paleontologist. They are a melee class. The scientist class has 2 self-heal abilities with the mega heal bomb and the heal station, and has great mobility with the warp. By standing on different objects, you could actually use the warp to go over a lot of higher areas that normally might not seem so. The mega heal bomb is also a movement tool, as you just saw. It's pretty hard to pull off, but it is actually incredibly useful, and the Mega Heal Bomb also heals you, and it has an insanely fast recharge. There's also the sticky grenades, but I do not recommend using those. I also do not recommend using the heal beam of science, because being able to heal yourself with the heal station allows you to stop fire damage, and allows you to keep your HP nice and high, because the scientists, like the sunflower, are a pretty fragile class. So let's talk a bit about the rankings of the scientists. As I said, the scientists are a shotgun type class, but this one character really breaks the exception, and that's none other than the astronaut. The astronaut is a very strange character, and that's because he is a sniper variant. I don't know what the devs were thinking, and I think this is potentially the best zombie in the game in certain scenarios. Imagine a character that does a ton of damage from far away, has over 20 ammo, but then can also heal himself while camping, making himself immune to fire damage, so you could sit in the back of the map, heal yourself, snipe people. This character is insane up close as well, because of course he's a shotgun character, he does more damage up close, but from far away he has a constant amount of pressure, and he's just a very solid character all around. This character is pretty much flawless, and this is what the scientist class is going to be compared to, and no other scientist reaches this level of precision and abilities just to take over anything. Let's move on to the next scientist, and that is the paleontologist in the 9 out of 10. The paleontologist is probably the best support zombie in the game besides the hover goat. The paleontologist has a lot of range similar to the astronaut and a lot of ammo. Kind of similar to the fire flower as well. You of course have fire damage, so this character having splash, if someone's behind a corner you could shoot them with a small bit of the projectile and they'll take 25 damage over time. The character also has a pretty fast fire rate, so you could have a constant amount of pressure from range. The character also does more damage up close because it is a shotgun character, but being able to constantly chip away at people from the back of the map and heal yourself makes this a really good chipping zombie. You can constantly lower people's health and be really hard to kill while making yourself immune to fire damage as well by using the heal station. You could use abilities like the warp to get yourself onto higher areas that you might usually not be able to, making him pretty versatile and better than other fire snipers similar to paleontologists like Captain Flameface. The paleontologist overall is a really overpowered zombie and is the pretty much another gold standard of what the scientist class is trying to be. Alright, so now we have the 8 out of 10 scientist, and we only have one in here, and that is the computer scientist. And this character is over a pretty high standard over the 7 out of 10 scientist class. Alright, let's go over the 8 out of 10 scientists next. And we only have one in here, and that is the computer scientist. And this is the best shotgun scientist. And what do I mean by that? The shotgun scientist, I mean, they still do have range. This character does have a fast fire rate, but he does not do that much damage from far away, but he does a ton up close. So the reason why this is the best shotgun scientist is because he has an extremely good damage output, and look at that reload. It is one of the fastest reloads in the game. It essentially almost feels like he has infinite ammo. So having a constant bit of pressure is really nice. A lot of the other scientists suffer because you're up against someone up close, you have to reload, and in between that time, since you're so close to someone, they're doing the most damage possible and you're going to die. This character also has a meter, which is just yet another bonus, which is really good. The meter is pretty decent, it gives you a speed boost, gives you armor, and this is just a really good character up close. One of the better melee characters in the game. The character does have low health, however, and isn't very good at range, but I think this is the gold standard for a shotgun scientist. Let's move on to the 7 out of 10 scientists. So these are pretty much downgrades from the computer scientists, in my opinion. Now, let me state that these characters are still really good, but melee characters do have quite an issue in the game. They're very easily countered. A lot of these characters don't really have a gimmick like the computer scientist does. They have a longer reload. Some of them have a slower fire rate, and they don't have a meter. For example, the regular scientist, he has one of the slowest rate of fires in the game, but he could 2-shot corns with his damage upgrade, which is kind of insane. He does 77 damage per shot up close. From far away, he only does 20, and he has a really slow fire rate, so he is kind of useless from far away, but still usable. He could chip away at people. So it's not as bad if there's a drone attacking you. But the character does suffer from a very long reload, and you're kind of forced to use a reload or ammo upgrade, meaning you have to sacrifice a health upgrade or a speed upgrade, and the character just doesn't excel as much as the other scientists just because he's limited to purely close range. Alright, the next 7 out of 10 scientists we have is the marine biologist. So the marine biologist is also a really good pick. He's quite similar to the reg scientist, except he has a faster damage output. So he has a really high damage output. I believe the highest damage output out of all the scientists at 100 DPS, of course point blank. Far away, this character is pretty abysmal, similar to all the other scientists in this tier. But he does have more of a state of pressure than the other ones because he does have a faster fire rate. Overall, though, the character suffers from having a long reload. The next 7 out of 10 scientist is the Dr. Toxic, and again, I probably sound like a broken record. I won't go on too long about these other 7 out of 10 scientists, but this one is pretty much a downgrade of the paleontologist. He's the paleontologist, except he doesn't have splash, he has way less ammo, he does toxic damage, which is worse damage over time than fire damage. The character does have toxic aura, which, contrary to popular belief, on melee characters is actually very useful. The extra bit of damage can really lower their health, and when you're reloading, it can just keep them taking damage. So this character actually does benefit from the toxic aura effect. But his greatest strength is really he has a better fire rate than most of the other scientists in this tier, and by that, not counting the marine biologist, he does more damage from range. The character suffers overall from not having a lot of ammo and having mediocre damage output. The character is still good all around and is pretty good as a support character. He could chip away at people from range, but he is just a downgrade completely from the paleontologist. Not much of a reason to use him, but is still a decent shotgun character in the game. Let's move on to the next 7 out of 10 scientist, and it is the physicist. The physicist is quite an interesting character. He's pretty similar to the regular scientist and the computer scientist mixed together. So he has a pretty decent fire rate, being higher than the regular scientist, but he has a longer reload than the computer scientist. From range, he does more damage than the reg scientist and has a better fire rate, meaning he's better at range, but he's a shotgun scientist, so there's nothing really to be impressed by at range. But up close, the character is pretty dominant. The only reason this character is here is because this character is quite outclassed by the computer scientist completely, but this is not a bad pick at all, and he definitely has a reason to be played. But overall, the computer scientist is the better character. Alright, let's move on to the final 7 out of 10 scientists, and that is the archaeologist. Now, this is a very interesting one. So similar to the physicist, he is kind of a mix of two characters, this one being the astronaut and I guess all the other scientists, shotgun scientists. So he's basically an astronaut, but worse. He does less damage from range, he has a lower rate of fire, he's not fully automatic, but up close he is quite good. He's a shotgun character, so up close he does more damage. So he's a great shotgun character. The game doesn't tell you that in his description, but he's a shotgun character that has a lot of ammo, but he also is good at having some pressure from range. And the only reason he's here is because he is just completely outclassed by the astronaut in every single way. This character is essentially the astronaut but balanced. There's no other reason to play this character. He is fun to play, but at the end of the day, he is completely outclassed by the astronaut. Alrighty, so let's move on next to the 5 out of 10 scientists. Now, a lot of newer players and a lot of people that are kind of inexperienced really like these characters in the 5 out of 10 categories, and let me explain a bit why these are 5 out of 10 characters. Consider the zoologist and the chemist almost as half of a character. They have pretty decent group control, with the chemist in particular being able to shoot a lot of people up close in groups, but his damage output is not very high, having only 40 damage per shot, as well as him being actually useless from range. There's no range projectile on this character whatsoever, so you could legit just have a drone and this character can't do anything. There's no ranged abilities. The only thing you can do is hide and pray, and the character just can lose to anyone with range, and there's nothing he can do. His only benefit being his primary is still very good up close, but not having range is just really bad, and it makes you lose basically every matchup in this game. The only reason you're going to win with this character is if you sneak up on people. Realistically, if you're at perfect play, this character loses to every single character in the game, including chompers, because you could get gooped as this character and you don't do enough damage to outkill any of the chompers. So this character is only good if you're sneaking up on people. Otherwise, he's a complete downgrade to all other scientists. He's still a lot of fun to play, but at the end of the day, he is just not a very good character because of his lack of range. As I said, half of a character. Let's move on to the next scientist and the final scientist of the list, the other 5 out of 10 scientists, the zoologist. The zoologist is pretty similar to the chemist. He has a faster rate of fire, however, and a better damage output. He doesn't have as much group control as the chemist, but similar to the chemist, he has no projectile. So you could have a drone, you could have a ranged character. This character can't do anything about it. So that's pretty rough. The character also is basically a stealth character, so you have to sneak up on people to do damage, but his damage output doesn't really make up for him not having any range. Characters like the marine biologist completely outclass this character in my opinion. Not having any range is horrible. Again, you could get stunned and gooped by a chomper, you can't kill him. And the character's damage output isn't significant enough. You're also forced to run upgrades on this character like reload, upgrade, and damage, so that means you don't really have a lot of upgrade customizability, whereas even the chemist has more upgrade customizability than him. So yeah, this character really suffers a lot from the range cap. The warp is nice for getting in and out, but like I said with the chemist, half of a character. Alright, so since we talked about the soldier class already, I figured it'd be fun to talk about the corn class next. So let's talk a bit about this class. They are quite tanky. They have 150 health and then 160 health with the health upgrade, which is optimal to run on most of the corns. So the corns have a constant state of pressure. They're all fully automatic. Really good from all ranges. Their ability set is also absolutely insane. Abilities like the bigger, better, butter can be thrown out, and everyone in the race has to run away from this thing or else you'll explode and die. It has huge coverage, and it's really good for capturing objectives and catching people off guard. The shuck shot is very similar to the ZPG. It's really good against higher health zombies up close, and you could barrel stuff people with it, as well as taking down things like bolt blasters, cannon rodeos, and opponents standing still, catching them off guard, similar to the ZPG. The Husk Hop is also an insanely good mobility tool, as well as it being the highest damage output in the entire game for an ability. I do think it shines the most as a mobility tool because you could use it to get on the groups, and you could also use it like this to traverse the map very quickly. So the Husk Hop is very versatile and very good. Alright, let's talk about the characters now. So, starting in the 10 out of 10, this is the gold standard for the corns. We have the regular corn and the party corn. So let's start off with the regular corn. So the regular corn has more ammo than the party corn, as well as pretty much being an exact clone character. But this character is still absolutely insane. His primary is nuts. It's good from all ranges. It's versatile. It's pretty much what I said about the regular foot soldier, except you have even more ammo, you have more health, you could be anywhere. This character is just insane and doesn't really have any flaws, besides him being a little bit bigger. But with the health upgrade, you can survive imp punts, so he's very tanky. You don't need an ammo or reload upgrade with him, in my opinion, because he has 45 ammo. So yeah, he has more than enough ammo in my opinion. The extra ammo he has over party corn is nice. But speaking of party corn, that is the other 10 out of 10 corn we're going to be talking about. So party corn, his difference between the regular corn is he actually has less ammo at the cost of having a meter. So he has a meter, so you only need 5 kills and it could be filled up by shares. So it's really easy to fill up his meter. In my opinion, this is the easiest character to get party time with in the entire game, since all of Corn's abilities kill really easily. This character's primary is nuts, so this character is constantly going to be in this legendary mode. The character is really strong overall. Like I said, he's a clone character of the regular Corn, so overall he's an insanely busted character. Let's talk a bit about the next corn, the barbecue corn, which is our first 9 out of 10 corn. So the barbecue corn is the best chipping character in the entire game, so let's talk a bit about him. He has a faster fire rate than all the other corn, so similar to the Sky Trooper, he shoots extremely fast, but that is at the cost of running out of ammo. But you just gotta hit one of these bullets that fly across the map. This character's accuracy is insane, and you're gonna be doing 25 damage over time. So you could hide in the back of the map with this tanky character, 150 health. You could chip away at people, again having a really fast rate of fire, so you're going to easily hit those shots and you're going to be chipping away at people very easily. This character is very anti-meta, meaning he can really shut down a lot of prominent zombies like imps because he hits them with only one bullet and they're 1/3 of their health is gone. And since this character is very accurate and easy to hit shots with, you can kill people extremely easy with this character. And this character is just very hard to counter. The reason he's not a 10 out of 10 is because his upgrades aren't customizable. It's really optimal to run fire, reload, and ammo with him. And he does get countered by heal stations as well, but this character is absolutely nuts. And the thing that's scary is he actually used to be even more busted. I think at one point I would consider him the best character in the game when the game came out. Alright, let's move on to the 8 out of 10 corns. So the 8 out of 10 corns are still fantastic characters. They just are kind of outclassed by the other corns, but they still do have a lot of, positives. So let's start off with the Pops corn. So the Pops corn is very accurate and he has a really good projectile speed. So he has almost hit scan projectile speed, meaning he's very, very easy to beam people with from far away. The character does have a better zoom than all the other corns as well, but he does suffer from drop off quite a bit. So he's pretty good at a mid range in my opinion. The character up close is still very good, and he actually has a ton of ammo. I don't even think it's necessary to run the reload or ammo upgrade on him because he runs out of ammo so slowly. He has so much, meaning you could put on a speed upgrade, you could put on a health upgrade, which I highly recommend. Yeah, this character is just very customizable, very versatile, and is really only down here because of outclass factor, but again, he's still an 8 out of 10 character, meaning he's really good. Let's move on to the next corn, which is the Commando corn. The Commando corn, in my opinion, is completely outclassed by the Party corn. So the Commando corn is a pretty cool character. He has a slower fire rate than most of the corns, but he still has great damage output. His primary is a little weird to use, but once you get used to it, it is very, very good. It also does barely any splash damage, but if you do like splash damage, and it can be useful when someone's hiding behind a corner, but again, you're a corn, if someone's behind a corner, I'm so sorry, if someone's behind a corner, you can husk hop over it or, approach them, so splash isn't too useful on a corn. And then of course the character does have a meter. However, this meter cannot be filled up by shared kills. So by the Party corn, it is completely outclassed. The Party corn also has a better primary. So being able to fill up a meter with shares and having a better primary just kind of makes this character useless. And even the thing about this meter is it gives him more ammo, speed, and damage reduction, but it doesn't make his primary do any more damage. The Party corns makes him do more damage and it gives him speed and armor. So this character's legendary mode is still very good, but it is way worse than Party corns, and on top of that the primary is worse. And having more ammo isn't really too useful because this character's reload is already really good. So yeah, this character is completely outclassed. He's still really good because all the corns are busted, but he is completely outclassed by the Party corn, unfortunately. He's still a cool character. And the last character is the Mob Cob. He's still an 8 out of 10. This character is very similar to the regular corn, and he is just outclassed by him, similar to all other corns. A lot of them are just outclassed, which is sad, but they're all still very good. The Mob Cob has a slower rate of fire than the regular corn, but he's still very accurate. He's customizable with his upgrade since he has a penetrate upgrade, which is completely useless, so you could run like a speed or a health upgrade on him. He's pretty fun from range, but there's really not much of a reason to use him. I think he looks really cool, but other than that, he is just completely outclassed by the regular corn. There's not really much else to add about him. He doesn't really have any unique features. The pierce feature isn't useful, and yeah, he's just completely outclassed by the regular corn. But all the corns are really good, a really solid class, similar to the sunflower. Like, they're all very balanced, they're all very good all around. All of them have a niche except for the Mob Cob in my opinion, but the Mob Cob is still a very solid character. Alright, let's move on to the next class that we're going to rank, and that is none other than the superhero class. So the superheroes are basically what the scientists want to be as a melee class. They have much more health, at 100 more health than the scientist, 210, and pretty much all of the superheroes you're going to want to run the health upgrade with, so 210 health. And then the heroic kick is a really, really busted mobility option. You could fly across the map with it, so you're this tank that can fly across the map with 200 health, And then you also have Ultra Ball, which is a pretty decent range option. It's a pretty good counter. And then of course the Turbo Twister, it could stop fire damage, gives you armor, it can be useful for escaping as well. And then the highlight of this character is the beam. And a lot of people aren't very aware of how good the beam is, and that's because the beam is kind of hard to use. Let's start off by talking about the beam. So by pausing the game, going to options, and changing your aim type to toggle aim, you could actually fly around while using the beam. The beam has an extremely high damage output, and let's say there's someone on a roof right here. The superhero has an ability to jump pretty high, so you could just beam around, you could shoot them with your beam, and it's a busted move. It's better than the punches, it has a higher damage output than the punches, and it is just really good. Constant state of pressure. From range, of course, the beam isn't very good, but from a mid-range, close range, it's some of the best primary in the entire game. But I do have to say the toggle aim does have quite a bit of a skill ceiling. It is kind of hard to use and get used to because you have to zoom in on the ground and then you can jump around and use the beam. You cannot jump around, zoom in, and use the beam. So it is pretty challenging to use, and then you're stuck moving slow because you are considered in an ADS state. So yeah, the beam is pretty challenging to use, but overall it is the best part about the character easily. But again, very challenging to use. So let's go over these superheroes. So let's start off with Toxic Brains, who I consider the best superhero. And this is a pretty famous character. Toxic Brains is a legendary character, except he doesn't have to fill up his meter using kills. He could fill up his meter using punches. With the meter upgrade, you could fill it up extremely quickly, and then you do an insane amount of damage. You have damage reduction, and you also get higher speed. Outside of the meter, his punches are kind of mediocre, and so is his beam, but his meter really makes up for the entire character. And then his beam does toxic damage as well. Like, again, I find that as a useful feature because you could chip away at people from range if someone's trying to run away from you if you don't have any kicks. And when you do have the meter, the beam does over 100 damage per second, and it's just one of the most insane primaries in the entire game. And then of course, when you have meter, the kicks do more damage as well as the punches doing insane damage. So this character is kind of a monster, but unfortunately, as all the other superheroes do, get countered by chompers. But that's why I think the beam is important, because you could go on a roof and you could beam away at the chompers. It's the best counter to chompers that this character has. So yes, the character is solid all around, has the best punches all around in the meter mode, and has a great beam in the meter mode, and the meter mode is just the reason this character is insane. Otherwise, he's kind of a mediocre character. Alright, let's move on to the 9 out of 10 superheroes, and we have the regular super brains, the party brains, and the cosmic brains. Alright, let's talk about the regular super brains first. So the regular super brains has very solid punches overall. And then of course, as I said in the beginning of this video, his beam is really good. So on top of having a really good beam and a really good punches, makes him a very versatile character. He's probably the most balanced superhero overall. He's a great pick, and there's nothing really wrong with him. I mean, he gets countered by chompers if he gets gooped, but again, as I said, the beam is great countering for the chompers. Alright, let's move on next to the Party Brains. Party Brains is kind of an alternative to the regular Super Brains. He's not an upgrade whatsoever, contrary to popular belief. The Party Brains beam actually does significantly less damage than the regular superhero, but he does have a meter that can be filled up by shares, similar to all the other party characters. But his meter doesn't benefit him too much in the damage department, it benefits him most in the speed and damage reduction department. I don't really think the meter makes up too much for the beam doing less damage, however. At a high skill ceiling, the beam, as I said, is the best part about this character, and this character's beam doing less damage isn't very good, but having the meter with the faster speed and armor is pretty nice, and his punches overall do a solid amount of damage. Let's move on to the final 9 out of 10 Super Brains, and that is the Cosmic Brains. Cosmic Brains is a very cool character. He can charge up his punches in multiplayer games. You can charge a punch on the ground and then go into the air. For whatever reason, it doesn't work in the backyard, but yeah, it's part of the game. In multiplayer, you can charge the punch in the air, so you could charge a punch here, jump up, and then punch the people. The way you're supposed to play this character is you charge up a punch either like that, or you charge it fully as you're approaching someone, and then you could do another quick charge. Never ever use the uncharged punches, they are absolutely horrendous. But you could do a quick charge like that, and then you could kill people very quickly. Being able to have a charge in the air and then go after people is really nice. If there's someone in a jumping state like a husk hop or a hyper, you could actually punch them and they'll go flying, and you can do cool things with that. And then the beam he has a very solid damage output. It is worse than most of the other beams, but it is still really good in the damage department. Overall, this is a very balanced superhero and is a very fun pick. He's not outclassed by any means, and he is just very good. I think he's easily at the same level as the party brains and the regular superhero. Alright, then we have an 8 out of 10, and I noticed how it's blank. And I did that on purpose because I think there's a significant drop right here in the class. Right below the 8 out of 10, we have the electric brains. So if you guys are an OG fan of the channel, this used to be my favorite character, my main character, but I have actually dropped him. I main Captain Cannon and EP now. So this character's punches are pretty abysmal. They do not do good damage. Chain damage that this character has is pretty useless. The thing that puts this character up higher than the breakfast brains is his beam. Arguably having the best beam out of all the superheroes. It has a faster rate of fire than the regular super brains, so it has a more constant damage output. But overall, it has really good damage output. The beam is very good. That's really the character's best aspect. The punches are kind of horrible. And then of course he has 200 health, but the main thing about this character is the beam. If you're not using the beam, this character is kind of horrendous. Alright, let's talk about the next character, Breakfast Brains, and he is a 6 out of 10 character. Potentially the worst zombie in the game. And the explanation for that is he's not like Chemist where he doesn't have any range, but his primary is pretty awful. Similar to the Cosmic Brains, you have to charge it up, and I don't mean like a charge weapon. Basically, when you start using it, it revs up and then it does the max amount of damage output, but if you're first using it, it does less damage. You have to wait for him to start slapping really quickly. So when he first starts, he barely does anything. He's tickling you, and by the time you're in someone's face doing this, you're probably going to die because you're going to get out damage output. Again, he has 210 HP, and he's actually faster than all the other superheroes, and he's actually the fastest zombie in the game, tied with the motocross star, so he's very good in the mobility department. But unfortunately his primary is pretty awful, and then his beam is not like any of the other ones. Similar to the punches, you have to wait for it to rev up, and by the time it's done revving up, you could have killed someone with the other beam. So he's just insanely outclassed by the other superheroes, and his primary and secondary are kind of, his primary is awful and his secondary is kind of mediocre. Of course, he has great abilities with his kicks, ultra balls, and this character actually is a great combination with the super guide ultra ball. Little fun fact, you could charge up, use the ultra ball, and you could actually move while charging up and shooting the ultra ball. And he does a lot of good pressure with the guided ultra ball. And if you guys want to see some gameplay of Breakfast Brains, I actually got 100 kills solo with this character, and it's on my channel. But this character is very bad in my opinion, and is a pretty low point for the zombie. Alright, the next class I want to talk about is the Cactus class, which is the sniper class for the plants. So, let's talk a bit about the class. So, the Cactus class is pretty good because, of course, they have range, they have better zooms than all the other plants, and they're just really dominant from long range. That is their main use. They also have the potato mines, which the regular ones can be used as basically proximity mines. If someone walks over it, they die. But I recommend using the nugget mines because if someone tries to rush you, you could spam these, they explode instantly, and they will kill anything almost instantly, including 200 health characters. So it makes the character much more viable because the character can struggle a bit against melee characters. They also have the walnuts, which can be used as staircases or to block imp punts or ZPGs, anything like that. Pretty useful overall. And then the drones can be pretty useful with their best aspect being the airstrike. So that's a bit about the cactus class. Let's look at the ranking. I went out of my drone and this is what happened. Alright, so let's start with the 10 out of 10 cacti, and I think we should start out by talking about the feature cactus, since this is pretty much the most comparable cactus in the 10 out of 10 tier compared to all the other cacti. So the feature cactus is kind of like the mystic flower is a charged variant. So let's talk about the uncharged shots first. Extremely fast rate of fire, over 100 damage per second, really fast reload, a ton of ammo, and it's just really busted and is better than pretty much all the other cacti primary. So the main aspect of this character having an edge over all the other ones is the charge shots. So this character has charge shots. You could charge up in the back of the map and does over 100 damage. And I don't mean 100 damage per second, I mean the bullet does 100 damage. Meaning this character can instant kill certain zombies, which is just absurd and not really fair, and this is one of the best plans in the game for that exact reason, just being very dominant. The charge shots aren't going to kill some of the higher health zombies in one shot, so the uncharged shots, which I mentioned do over 100 damage per second, do a great job of taking care of high health zombies. So this character is absolutely absurd, good from all ranges, really broken. Just really good. Let's move on to the next 10 out of 10 cactus, which is the petrified cactus. Petrified cactus is similar to electro, which we talked about in the very beginning of this video. It's a detonation character. So as I said with electro, you follow the projectile, detonate it. Takes a lot of depth perception to get good with this character, but once you do, this character is insane. One of the best plants in the game. Has really good group control. The explosion is gigantic. You're hitting directs with this character. The character has really fast kill times, and another bonus of this character is it actually has 150 health opposed to 125 like most of the other cacti do. So the character is just really tanky with the health upgrade, which you should be running, can survive imp punts, and since this is a mid-range type character, the character isn't that useful at long range, which doesn't really matter because you should be playing this character at a mid-range anyway. You're really tanky, you have a really good primary, you have a really good reload, and you have a lot of health. That makes a really busted character overall. So there's no better cactus between the feature cactus and the petrified cactus. It's pretty much which one do you want to use in this situation. Both of these characters are broken. Speaking of broken characters, let's move on to the regular cactus. So the regular cactus is really good. This character has no damage drop off and a really accurate primary. So on top of having a really good primary and no damage drop off, the character also has a really good reload, has a ton of ammo, has really good kill times, and then of course having a constant state of pressure, and just excels as a sniper as a whole. The character doesn't really have any flaws, it's just a great sniping primary, and the character does exactly what it's supposed to perfectly. Let's talk a bit about the next cactus, and that is the E-cactus, also known as the power cactus. The power cactus is pretty similar to the regular cactus in that the character is a sniper with quite a bit of ammo, but the character actually has a faster rate of fire than the regular scientist, which is pretty useful. The character's chain damage is also really good, similar to the power flower. I think this is the character that benefits from the chain damage the most out of any character in the entire game, because you could get a headshot on a zombie and there's a bunch of zombies clumped far away and you're just gonna like shoot them. You could shoot a mech and it'll just like link onto all their zombies nearby and kill them. This character is really good at group control, and of course having the fast rate of fire means more of a constant bit of pressure compared to the red cactus. So the character is a really good alternative to the regular cactus. If you want some group control, you like the faster rate of fire, this character is insanely good. Definitely a top tier character. Let's move on to the next character, the Zen Cactus. The Zen Cactus is quite an interesting character. So the Zen Cactus's gimmick is the lower ammo you are, the more damage you'll do. So this one does lower damage. Let's say we go to our first shot and it does a ton of damage. If you look at these projectiles, they are humongous. So that means they are extremely easy to hit critical hits with. So these projectiles, along with being really strong, are really easy to hit. This doesn't really matter, but the character has splash as well, and it barely does any damage. But if someone's behind a corner, that's another benefit. But the character also has a insanely fast reload. So on top of having a good damage output, this character is insane at dealing with mechs. This character is insane at, you know, damage control, and just overall is a great pick and is a great alternative to the regular cactus and the other 9 out of 10 cacti. Alright, let's move on to the 8 out of 10 cacti, and these characters are kind of a downgrade to the 9 out of 10 cacti, but they're still good picks. But I think these are really either niche uses or outclassed. Let's start off with the camo cactus, and I think the camo cactus is sadly outclassed by the Zen cactus in pretty much every way. So the camo cactus has the same exact fire rate as the reg scientist, so it is insanely slow. The character does do 66 damage per shot though, so you could 2-shot 125 health characters. If the character has over 125 health, it can be a little bit troublesome to deal with them, and especially if the character has around 200 health, this character can really struggle to kill them, because by the time they're shot 2 times, they can escape. But the character as a whole is really good at dealing with most of the zombie roster, but does struggle against mechs and, you know, some of the higher health zombies, but does have a really good primary, and as you can see, the zoom on this character is absolutely insane. But I do think this character is outclassed by both the reg cactus along with the Zen cactus pretty much being a better version of the camo cactus. Alright, let's move on next to the bandit cactus, and this is a very good character. Contrary to popular belief, this is a sniper character. A lot of newer players think since it's a fully automatic character that it is a close range character. That is false. The character has a really strange looking reticle, as you can see, but believe it or not, the character actually does have really good accuracy. As you can see, the reticle like expands very strangely, but this character has perfect accuracy and is really good. Does the same amount of damage output as the regular cactus. And the only issue with this character really is the character has a low amount of ammo and is constantly needing to reload, so you're not really able to customize the upgrades too much, and of course the character is outclassed by the other cacti above it. But overall, this is a really good pick and has more pressure than most of the other cacti. It has the most pressure out of all the cacti because it has the fastest primary weapon. So you're going to be constantly shooting at someone, constantly doing damage, even though it is less damage than some of the other cacti, like the future cactus, that have a fast fire rate. Alright, the next cactus in the 8 out of 10 category is the fire cactus. The fire cactus comes in that niche category that I was mentioning earlier. The fire cactus has drop off, so this is like a flaw of the character. So farther away, the character doesn't do as much damage, which I am very thankful for, because you hit one shot from far away and they're taking 25 extra damage. So it doesn't matter that this character has drop off, because this is a damage over time fire character. So you hit one shot from far away, they're going to take a ton of damage from the actual needle, but then they are also going to take a ton of damage from the fire damage. So this character is really good at dishing out damage as a whole, and the character also has a lot of ammo and just is really good, and then up close also, and the character also has a crit multiplier as well. So the character's damage output is nuts, but I do think the character is a little bit niche compared to some of the other cacti, but is still very well deserved 8 out of 10 ranking. Again, most of these cacti are top tier. I consider 8 out of 10 and above a top tier character. And then I have a significant drop from the 8 out of 10 to the 6 out of 10 with the ice cactus and the jade cactus. Not only are these characters really niche, their damage outputs are kind of awful. Let's start off with the ice cactus. So the strength of this character. The character has a ton of ammo, so more than the regular cactus. So you could constantly be firing at someone without having to reload very often. The character also freezes very quickly, so I think it's within a couple headshots you can freeze someone, and this character is really good as a kind of an assist character, but that's not really what a cactus should be doing. If a cactus is tickling you from far away, not doing like any damage, it's kind of outclassed by all the other ones. And the freeze gimmick, while it is good, it doesn't make up for the low damage output. So this character is more poorly designed than, you know, bad, but the character does have a niche with the freezing, but it's just pretty not good compared to all the other cacti. And then finally we have the jade cactus, who I really do not understand why this character is in the game. This character is very strange. It's an armored variant of the cactus, so even though we already have the petrified cactus, this character also is very tanky. The character does have really good accuracy, which is a strength, but the character does less damage than the regular cactus. So I do think the character should have done like toxic damage, and my theory is like, you know how when a penny gets old it turns all green? That's what I was like, Jade Cactus would be cool if that's what it was. But anyway, that's besides the point. The character is absurdly slow, like the slowest character in the game. It doesn't really matter too much because you're a cactus, but like this character moves as slow as molasses. And the damage doesn't make up for it, and then when you shoot out the shatter shot it explodes and it doesn't do like any damage, and it's kind of a stupid gimmick. So yeah, overall this character is just very poorly designed, similar to the ice cactus, and does not have any niche whatsoever. Alright, let's move on to the other large-sized zombies with the engineer class. So let's talk a bit about the engineer class. The engineer class have very good primaries all around, pretty much, besides a couple of the variants. But their main benefit is most of them have great group control, splash damage, overall damage output being good, and they're all pretty much good at mid-range. They're pretty similar to the peashooters on the zombie side. They also have the jackhammer, so they could quickly traverse around the map. Turbo jackhammer in particular is really fast and really good to get places quickly. The bolt blaster is an insane ability. It has some of the highest damage output in the game. It could absolutely shred through things. It can be leaned up towards the sky to sometimes tank through things like bean bombs, and it's just a nuts ability. It's really good. The sonic grenade is the best ability that the engineer has. However, it can take chompers out of burrow, which is like its like most famous feature, but it is also just overall a really good stun. Having a stun makes a class really powerful. So you could stun a group of people, and with some of these variants, having a stun is absolutely insane. So let's go ahead and talk about the 10 out of 10 engineers, starting off with the mechanic. So the mechanic is very different compared to the other engineers on this list. He's very unique, and that is because he basically has a fully automatic weapon. He basically has the Sky Trooper's weapon on an engineer, except it has more ammo. So very fast rate of fire, very accurate weapon. His reticle isn't very good, so as you see, reticle is like kind of opening up a bit, but the character is very accurate and his primary is broken. It does over 100 damage per second, and like I said, some of these characters really benefit from a stun, so you could stun someone, they can't move, you could do over 100 damage per second and kill them like instantly. Insane. This character is good at all ranges. A lot of these engineers have range caps, but this one doesn't. You could snipe people with this character, you could be up close, versatile. Of course you have bolt blaster for those situations, and then you go on your jackhammer and you have amazing movement with a broken primary. So this character is flawless, one of the best zombies in the game easily. Let's talk about the next zombie on the list, and that is the Rhodey Z. And this is the other strange engineer. The Rhodey Z is what the chemist and zoologist wanted to be so bad, but they weren't. The Rhodey Z is a tank engineer, so he has 150 health opposed to all other ones having 125. So he does have a range cap. He can only shoot right in front of him. But however, the reason why he's better than the scientist, and the reason why he is better than a lot of the other melee characters in the game, is because he has a stun. He could stun people and go in a group, people won't kill them. He has a jackhammer, which is a really good approach option. And then, even at far away, if something is threatening him, he has his bolt blaster. So he does have range. If there's a drone shooting at him, he could bolt blaster it in those situations where he needs to. And he also has 50 more health than all the other scientists. So having a stun, having more health, having a jackhammer, having a bolt blaster just makes this character insanely good. This character is nuts. The only problem with him is, of course, he doesn't have a lot of movement opportunities because his bolt blaster keeps him still. But up close, this character is a demon. He is really broken. He's one of the best close range, if not the best close range character in the game, not counting meters. Alright, let's talk a bit about the next engineer, and that is the Painter. So the Painter is a really good and solid character. He does have a slight flaw, which is why he's not in the 10 out of 10 category, but he is a really good character. So the character has a better zoom than all the other engineers, and that's because he is a sniper character. The character does a ton of damage per shot, and he has so much ammo, so you do not need to run an ammo upgrade or a reload upgrade on him. So you could run a health upgrade, and the character is really customizable with his upgrades. But having a really good accurate primary makes him just do so much damage from range. He's a really good sniper. He's a better sniper than some of the pirates, which is kind of nuts. Of course, he also has bolt blaster for the situations he needs it. He could get across the map quickly with his jackhammer, and he has a really good projectile speed as well. He's just a really good character. His only flaw being his movement affected projectile. So similar to the Rock P, as I mentioned earlier, his primary is a little inaccurate at times, and that's because it has a weird flaw where if you move sometimes it doesn't shoot exactly in a straight line. This doesn't matter too much because if you're sniping you're not going to be moving around too much, but if you are in a close quarter situation it can be kind of annoying, or if you're trying to shoot something midair it can be kind of annoying. But other than that, he's a very good character, definitely worthy of a 9 out of 10 slot, one of the better zombies in the game. Moving on to the next 9 out of 10 zombie, we have the Sanitation Expert. So the Sanitation Expert is a pretty interesting one. He's kind of similar to the Painter and the regular Engineer mixed together in my opinion. He has a decently fast fire rate, faster than the Painter, and he also does a ton of damage per shot. Of course he does toxic damage as well, which can be nice to cancel people's regeneration. And the character shoots in a kind of lob sort of way. He's also very good from range. But he does a ton of damage per shot, but his projectiles, as you could see, they do explode after a while, so he is a mid-range type character. But I think he kind of outclasses the regular engineer in all aspects except for projectile speed. But he has a ton of ammo, he has a great reload, he's just a very solid character. He pairs well with the stun, and he's great at group control. Alright, moving on to the 8 out of 10 engineers. The reason these are in the 8 out of 10 and not 9 out of 10 is because they are outclassed by the Sanitation Expert and the Painter, and they are probably very outclassed by the Mechanic and the Roadie Z. So let's start off with the Landscaper. So the Landscaper is a character that I really enjoy playing. I think he's really, really fun. So he's fully automatic, similar to the Mechanic, but he doesn't have an assault rifle type weapon. He has a splash type weapon. So his main issue is, of course, the range. As you can see, his projectiles are exploding midair, so you kind of have to be close to what you're shooting, but he does have a great damage output. But as you can see, those projectiles are exploding before they even touch the balcony over there, so it is kind of rough. So this character, you have to be really close to people. His primary isn't that good and is very outclassed by the Mechanic, but still has great kill times, still is good, but the character is completely outclassed by the Mechanic in my opinion. He's still a lot of fun, but just very, very outclassed. Alright, the next character is the regular engineer. The regular engineer is very, very good. He has a great projectile speed. He has very good splash, but he does have the range cap issue. But for this character, it's not much of an issue because when the projectiles explode, it actually has a hitbox surrounding it that actually does damage, pretty similar to a self-detonation character. As you could see, when the projectile explodes, it's exploding most of the crates surrounding it. So it's actually a very useful mechanic, even though it's a little niche and hard to pull off. The character also has a fast projectile speed, as I said, which is nice, and the character's splash damage is very good as well. This character's good, but again, kind of outclassed, but is still very good, has a reason to be played. Alright, the next character is the Welder. So the Welder has a faster fire rate than the regular engineer, and I'm not going to play as him because I'm max rank, and there's a thing you could do where you could upgrade every character except for one of them if you have Unicorn Chomper mastered, so I didn't touch him, so I think it's funny. I'm going to keep him at 0 minutes. If I get like 10k likes on this video, I'll master him. How about that? But he has a faster fire rate, he can shoot a little bit further than the regular engineer, and of course he does fire damage, so he's great at chipping people. There's nothing else that really needs to be said about him. He's just great at chipping away at people, and then the faster fire rate is really nice. Next up we have the Plumber, which is kind of like an alternate clone of the regular engineer. he could shoot a lot further than the regular engineer. His projectiles do explode after a while, but as you can see, they go really far. So he's definitely better at range, and then this character actually has the worst damage upgrade in the entire game. So he does suffer from that quite a bit. He has great splash. It does 25 damage splash. Directs, he does quite a bit of damage too, but you could kind of just be far away with him and, you know, splash people out. So very, very good at that. But after, he has a reason to be played, but I do think characters like the Sanitation Expert are a little bit better. But this character is still really, really good and definitely has a reason to be played. So there's a significant drop now. As you can see, there's a 7 out of 10 and then a 6 out of 10 with the AC parry and the electrician. And let's talk about the electrician first, because in my opinion, he is just the plumber, but worse in every single way possible. So the plumber has the biggest splash radius out of any zombie in the game, but it barely does any damage. Like, it does like 10 damage. So it's okay at chipping away at people, but the problem with this character is his reload is awful. His damage output is kind of awful. His projectiles explode very, very, very close to him, so you have to play very close with him. And he's just very outclassed, but he's still good at chipping away, but like, that's one use he has. That's why he's not like a 5 out of 10 character, but he just has a lot of flaws that can't really make up for other things with him. Of course, all the engineers have access to the bolt blaster, the jackhammer, and the stun, which is kind of what carried this class in my opinion. This is a really good ability set. Alright, final engineer we have is the AC parry. So the AC parry, like I said, is a 6 out of 10 engineer. So the AC parry is a fully automatic engineer, and he also does freeze damage. So ice damage is nice because it could freeze people after a while, disable abilities, but this character's damage output is really bad. This character is not good from range, and there's not really a point to play this character because his damage output is kind of awful. And why do you need to freeze someone as an engineer when you have a stun? Yes, you can freeze someone, and then when they unfreeze you could stun them, but with most engineers you could stun them and then just kill them by the time they're unstunned. So this character's damage output isn't strong enough to really match freezing someone. There's even a lot of characters that you can freeze them and they still live, because this character's damage output is just so low. So yeah, this primary has a lot of issues. This character might as well not have splash. It is some of the worst damage output in the entire game. But the character still has bolt blaster, so that's one thing the character has going for it. Alrighty, so the next class we're going to be talking about is none other than the Chomper class. This class has the most variants out of any of the classes in the game. A lot of Chompers to talk about, but a lot of them are clone characters, so that makes it a little bit easier to understand how these work. So let's talk about the class as a whole. So base Chompers, they have Goop. Goop is the best ability in the game in my opinion. It has an extremely fast recharge. It's great from range. It does damage over time, kind of like fire damage. It does a lot of damage, so you could constantly spam it. It disables abilities. It makes it really easy to eat people. If someone's trying to attack you, you could just goop them and run away because they're stuck in place, and it's just overall a really busted ability. Really, really, really good. The burrows are decent abilities. The regular burrow is more of a get in and kill people move. You could also hide underground, regenerate, and sprint burrow you could use as a warp, and it's not the best for eating people. The spike weeds are great for trapping zombies. Let's say you're fighting 2 zombies at once. You could spike one of them, you put one of them in the spike weed, finish off the other one, and then you can get them one in the spike weed. So it's a good group control thing. And then also, if there's a higher health opponent, or if there's someone in a barrel or something, you could put down a spike weed and it'll rip them right out of it. So spike weeds are good, and you could also use them as traps that do damage. The vamp weed gives you more health though. Alright, let's start out with the only 10 out of 10 Chomper, and that is the Twilight Chomper. The Twilight Chomper is the best Chomper by far. No other Chomper really matches this level of like chomperness. This character is so good. So he is he's second fastest plant in the game, right behind Hot Rod with 2 speed upgrades. So he is super fast. He has 150 health. He has great damage output, and then he also has warp. And warp is really good because it could be used to escape. It could be used to get to higher places, like I could warp over to where that palm tree is. It could be used just in so many situations. It's a really broken ability. You could fly across the map, and combining that with speed and a primary, it is really good. So yeah, this character is one of the best melee characters in the entire game. One of the better plants, arguably the best melee plant. I think it's probably the best melee plant. Alright, so next we got the 9 out of 10 chompers. So these are both really good chompers as well. Let's start off with the fire chomper. So the way these work is they don't chomp, they spray. So similar to the Rody Z. So they spray, they have great group control, and they have pretty good reach as well. They have an insane damage output, so if you go near these things, you get a goop down, you're gonna die. With these chompers, I recommend using the sprint burrow because you could cancel it before it's done, and then as you see, I'm able to gain quite a bit of momentum out of that. And it has a faster recharge, so they could just be used as like a warp, and you're not gonna want to be swallowing people as the spray chompers unless it's someone like singled off. Another benefit of the spray chompers, fire chomper in particular and toxic chomper, is that they have 175 health, and then running the optical upgrades, the health upgrade, they have 185 health, which is extremely tanky, more than the twilight chomper. So you have a really good primary. Again, this primary works by the faster you spam, the more damage it'll do. It's oversight, but it does work. And the character overall is just very devastating up close. Let's talk about the other 9 out of 10 chomper, which is the toxic chomper. So the toxic chomper is, like I said, a clone character of the fire chomper, or I guess you could say the fire chomper is a clone character of the toxic chomper, any way you want to put it. So the toxic chomper is pretty much exactly the same as the fire chomper, except of course he does toxic damage, the other one does fire damage. The toxic aura on this character is actually useful because on melee characters like Toxic Brains and Dr. Toxic and of course Toxic Chomper, the toxic aura effect is actually really useful because it does a little bit extra damage, and that could really come in clutch. So yeah, the toxic aura effect is useful on this character, and then just like Fire Chomper, he has 175 health, 185 with the health upgrade, has an insane damage output, and it's just really good. So the Fire Chomper and the Toxic Chomper have the best primaries out of all the chompers. So the next chomper I actually do not have on Xbox, but I do have him on PC, and I did play him quite a bit. He's the regular chomper, but he has the scientist's warp. So he has 175 health, similar to the twilight, or similar to the spray chompers and the regular chomper. So he has more health than the twilight chomper, but he's not as fast. He has a decent primary, just like the regular chomper, but having the warps is really, really nice. But I do think his primary is just overall decent. That's why he's an 8 out of 10 character. He's really, really good. He's not quite as good as the spray chompers in my opinion because their primaries are just really, really overbearing. But the unicorn chomper is a great pick. He's a great alternative to the twilight chomper because he's more tanky. Alright, let's move on to the 7 out of 10 chompers. So these chompers are just kind of outclassed, but they still have good primaries. Starting off with the Power Chomper. So Power Chomper, he has a lot of health. Fun fact, with the help, I actually got 200 kills with this character in a single match, so it was the first Chomper 200 kill game, but it's on my channel. So I was able to achieve it, and this was the character I used. So Power Chomper, he does electric damage. He actually has a slower rate of fire than the other spray chompers, which is kind of unfortunate, which will hold this character back the most. And then the chain damage is really bad on this character and is really niche and not useful in the slightest. But the character is still good. He still has a spray primary. This character is really glitchy though. His hit detection does not work properly, like in the slightest. He's probably the glitchiest character in the game when it comes to his primary landing. But he still is very tanky, he still has goop, he still has spike weeds, and a good primary overall. So he's a great pick. Just very outclassed by the fire chomper and the toxic chomper. Speaking of spray chompers, this is the last spray chomper on the list, the chomp thing. So the chomp thing is kind of crazy with his gimmick. So he only has lower health. He only has 135 health. So with the health upgrade, he has 145. But he is also a spray chomper. Now you're probably wondering, like, what is the point of this character if he has less health? If he, just seems bad. But it's because his gimmick is his regeneration. So he starts regenerating basically instantly. So once this newspaper zombie attacks me, I will see, look, in between him hitting me, I'm already regenerating back health before he's even able to get his next attack out. So this character's regeneration is insane. He could go into burrow and get all of his health back. Really, really good survivability wise. He does have less health, however, so he dies to imp hunts because he doesn't have over 150 health. But he is really, really good. His primary is good as well. And just running the regeneration upgrade, the damage upgrade, and the health upgrade on him is just like kind of insane. This character does have a niche, but he's kind of held back by his lower health. Next we have the 6 out of 10 chompers. These characters are still really good, but they really are gimmicky, and they have some niche matchups that they win. Let's start out with the Hot Rod Chomper. The Hot Rod Chomper is the Twilight Chomper, but worse in every single way. The Twilight Chomper is just as fast as the Hot Rod Chomper. He also has more health and the warp. Twilight Chomper also goes just as fast in the burrow if you run burrow on Twilight Chomper. So this character is very obsolete compared to the Twilight Chomper. Damage output wise, he also does less damage than the Twilight Chomper. So that's another thing. And he does get a speed effect when he swallows a zombie, but if you're trying to swallow zombies and you only have 125 HP, that's not really the best use of a character. The really only good use for him is his speed and sneaking up on people. Otherwise, he is awful. So he's very outclassed by the Twilight Chomper. Alright, the next chomper is the Disco Chomper. And this chomper is actually pretty decent in my opinion. He's pretty situational. So Disco Chomper, he can swallow a bunch of zombies, and then he gets to go in his Disco Fever mode. When he has a Disco Fever mode, he's probably the best chomper when he has his meter, obviously. So he's really fast. He gets a speed boost and damage reduction. But you have to swallow zombies, meaning it's really only necessary to run the digestion upgrades on him. So you're going to be picking off zombies one by one, but then you're going into groups of zombies and you don't have the optimal upgrade. So it's a very weirdly designed character. His chomps are still good, and then he does have quite a bit of health at 175. So he does have a lot of advantages, but he's just kind of in a weird spot when you could just play other chompers. This character's swallow gimmick is just not very good. Alright, the next chomper is the Armor Chomper. So the Armor Chomper is actually a very anti-meta character. Quite an interesting one. I think out of all of the ones in this tier, I think this is the one that is the most useful. So this character has an insane amount of health, over 200. He is very slow, however, but with his insane health, he's one of the tankiest plants in the game. This character is a fantastic counter to characters like Toxic Brains or Rody Z, or characters that just do a ton of damage up close. And Scientist, this character can just chomp Scientists twice, 3 times if they have the health upgrade, and they just die. And the Scientist cannot kill this thing because it has so much health. You could stun someone, go behind him, chomp, and they die because he is very slow and has a hard time approaching. He's more of a defensive character where people approach you and then you could just stop them. So characters like superheroes, he's a really good counter to, but he's a bit one-dimensional in that aspect. He does have a use, however. He's very anti-meta, like I said. Alright, the final character in this tier is the Yeti Chomper. This character seems really good on paper, but if you've played this character, you've seen this character, in execution, he's not very good. Positives, he has 175 health, which is cool. And then, of course, he has range with his range and quotation marks with his primary. Um, there's not really a point to use this character because the projectiles really don't do that much damage. They have really bad projectile speed and they have really bad accuracy. If you want a character that's ranged with ice, you might as well play Ice Pea or even Ice Cactus or Frost Rose. Any ice character is better at range than this character. This character is abysmal at range. He does have infinite ammo, which is cool, so you never have to reload. But if you freeze someone and then goop them, it removes the freeze. That's a stupid glitch. You can't really run, if you're going to run digestion on this character, you might as well play like Disco Chomper. Yeah, he's just kind of in a weird spot. There's not really a reason to choose this character, but he does have some niche uses. Like he's more of a support character. That's what it feels like, because he could just make people move slower and then goop them, trap people in spike weeds. That's his best aspect. So other than that, he is not very good. And even up close, like, he still does quite a bit of damage if you're up close with someone because it hits them directly, but not really a good primary overall. Alright, now we have the 5 out of 10 chompers. These are either outclassed or just literally don't have a purpose. Let's start out with the regular chomper, who, in my opinion, just is useless, doesn't have a purpose. So this character has 175 health. His primary is decent, but the thing is with this character is, why play this character when you could play Disco Chomper or the Spray Chompers or any of the other chompers that have 175 health? This character doesn't have any gimmicks that puts him over the other ones. He is just so outclassed. The only reason to play this chomper is like if you are a new player and you don't have any other chomper unlocked. Otherwise, this character is just, you're not going to be playing as him. He doesn't have any strengths compared to the other chompers. He's just chomper. So outclass feature, this is the most outclassed character in the entire game in my opinion. He's just, there's not really a unique gimmick he has. He still can instant kill people and eat people, but like I said, he's just extremely outclassed, so he belongs in the 5 out of 10 category. The next character is the Count Chompula, and this character just is not designed well at all. So he has 150 health, 160 with the health upgrade, meaning that you do less damage, you have less health, and his whole gimmick is you eat people and you regain your health. So you eat someone, you regain your health. What's the point of that when you could just kill someone, keep your health, and have more health? Instead, you have a character with less health, a primary that doesn't do a lot of damage, and a gimmick that can be useful like very rarely. Again, this character is just arguably just useless. He looks really cool. I really like the way he looks, but his actual gameplay wise, he's not useful at all. Anyways, that's enough with the chompers. Overall, very strange class. The unicorn and the spray chompers are really good, and so is the twilight chomper, but all the other ones are just like kind of useless and get outclassed by a lot of the other chompers. Alrighty, so next we're going to be talking about the all-star class. So this one, you might notice that the tier like ranking of them in the number categories is kind of decisive, and I'll go into more detail why. If you actually look, it's in the shape of an E, so I just noticed that, so that's pretty cool. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about the all-star class to start. So the all-star class, they are really good up close. Similar to the superhero, they have 200 health, and I think the optimal upgrade, running health upgrade, you have 210 health, so you're extremely tanky. Most of them are really good up close. Some of them are actually decent from range, but they have a really good ability set. They could block beam bombs with the dummies, or you could use the shield decoys to, take cover and go somewhere. Either of them are fine. You also have the future dummy, which is like kind of situational. Long bomb, imp punt. Long bomb detonates instantly. Imp punt is better for like groups. They're both really good abilities. It's just like, which one do you like better? There's not a better one. And then the tackles, the sprint tackle is a really good mobility option. It has a better recharge, and the ultra tackle goes a little bit further, has a longer recharge, and it does more damage. So again, it's a very which one do you like better? That's how all these abilities work. Which one do you like? But their primaries, they all are fully automatic and all have infinite ammo, so no reloading at all with this class. So let's go ahead and begin with the 10 out of 10 All-Stars, and I'd like to start off with the regular All-Star. So the regular All-Star, this is an interesting one. So his primary does a ton of damage. His projectile speed is a little strange and hard to get used to in the way his bullets work, but if you could make this character work, like aiming wise from range, he can shred people from far away. But up close, this character is a menace. Mid-range, this character is a menace. His primary is really good. You could fire for a very long time. Just a very versatile primary. The character doesn't have any other gimmicks, but the character's primary is just really solid. From range, you could get shares instant, like very easily, like I said, and up close, this thing is like really dangerous. So yeah, a really solid character overall. None of the other all-stars really can replicate what he does. So let's move on to the next 10 out of 10 all-star, and it's the hockey star. So this is the other all-star that's really good, the hockey star. As I said earlier, there's not a clear winner. It's just both of these are 10 out of 10 characters, and they're the gold standard for the class. So the hockey star, he has the fastest rate of fire in the entire game, and he's also really good from long range. His projectile speed is also really good and very accurate. So it kind of feels like you're shooting out a laser out of this thing. So really fast fire rate. It isn't very accurate, but if you could manage it, it's really good at killing people from far away. And then up close, of course, it's really good. This character's primary is just really versatile. Sometimes it's better than the regular all-stars. But this character is just really strong, and then having a high rate of fire is like insane pressure. So yeah, this character is really good. Let's move on to the 8 out of 10 all-stars. So these ones are just, they have niches or they are outclassed. Some of them have really cool niches and then have like a bad primary, or some of them are just like, you know, they have a niche, and then some of them are just like weird versions of the regular all-star or the hockey star. Let's talk about the golf star first. So the golf star is the first 8 of 10 all-star we're going to talk about. He is essentially the hockey star, but kind of different. He has a better zoom, but that's not really useful in my opinion. He is more accurate, however, than the hockey star. And he also has solid damage output like the hockey star, but overall, I think the hockey star is just more useful because the higher rate of fire and the damage output being better. But this character is still really accurate. If you want an accurate all-star, that's a niche that he fills very well. This character is also like just really good at like chipping away at people from range and like stealing kills. But like a mid-range, this character is very dominant. So yeah, he's a good character. I'd recommend him, but again, he's just outclassed by the hockey star. That's really his biggest issue. The next character is the tennis star. So the tennis star is quite an interesting one. I could compare the tennis star more to the regular all-star, as his primary is a very good close range weapon. This character's gimmick though is whenever he fires, again, I didn't mention this, but you can't shoot and jump while you're playing as an all-star, unfortunately. But if you zoom in, you can shoot instantly, which is cool, but if you're walking, you have to rev it up. But this character still can walk really fast while shooting, which most of the other all-stars cannot do. So that's his gimmick, and then his overall ground speed is better than most of the other all-stars. There's one all-star that's actually faster than him, and the game doesn't even tell that to you. But yeah, this character is really good if you want to use abilities, because you could get in quickly and get out quickly, and his primary overall is pretty good. He has a niche with his speed abilities. He's a great pick, but I think he's kind of outclassed by the regular all-star. But that niche he does have with the speed still makes him an 8 out of 10 great character. Alright, this next one's cool. We have the baseball star. So this character is kind of a mix of the hockey star and the regular all-star. He has a very fast rate of fire, really quick, but his overheat is basically non-existent. So you could shoot for a while, wait for the overheat, and then you could shoot almost instantly after that. So it kind of feels like you're reloading with this character. So, and he also does over 100 damage per second up close. So he has a really good recharge, overheat penalty, and he's really good at close range, and then mid-range he's even good too. His projectiles are kind of hard to use, but he's a very solid pick, but I think he's very outclassed by the hockey star and the regular all-star, but he's still a fantastic pick. Alright, the next character is the motocross star. Now this is a really cool one, and a lot of people don't really understand what this character is. So starting off with his primary, he can fire for an extremely long period of time. Like, that is a long time. Look at that. But anyway, this is the fastest zombie in the game, tied with Breakfast Brain. So yes, he is faster than the tennis star by quite a bit. By combining him with the speed upgrade, and the optimal upgrade set for him is health, speed, damage, you could really get in and out. You don't need that overheat upgrade because I just showed how long he could fire for. So you could have a ton of health, you can have a ton of speed, you could go in, use abilities. He's the best all-star to use if you just like running in and spamming abilities. Highly recommend using him because he's just faster and every single way. His primary is also pretty decent as well. It has a weird effect where it can disable your abilities. It can be useful actually, like especially against characters like Citron, so they can't use their stun or go back into their ball. So it's actually a pretty useful effect. And then if you shoot like a P Gatling, they can't escape the P Gatling, like things like that. And then it also has splash, but barely any. But yeah, the character is kind of interesting, but he does have a niche with his speed. If you want speed and a better primary, you could play Tennis Star, but this character is faster than the Tennis Star. Alright, the next character is the Rugby Star. So the Rugby Star is quite interesting in my opinion. He's still an 8 out of 10 because he doesn't really have anything super bad about him. He's kind of like the Baseball Star, except he's kind of more like the Hockey Star. Because the reason I'm saying that is because he feels like the Reg All-Star and the Hockey Star mixed together. So he kind of feels like the Reg All-Star with his slower fire rate, but he feels like the Hockey Star with his mid-range abilities. This character is very good at mid-range. That's where he excels the most. He has very big projectiles, so it's very easy to hit shots with him, and he could kill pretty quickly. His overall damage per second isn't very good, but having range and then of course 200 health and an ability and being very accurate is very useful, and this character does a lot of damage from mid-range, so highly recommend this one. He's great at just chipping away at people, and then he does have splash, so you could shoot a teammate and it could bounce off of him, and then it could hurt the plants, but it's not much damage, so I won't go on about it. Alright, the final 8 out of 10 all-star is the Cricket Star. This character has the niche of being a fire character. So this character is strange. His projectiles are really weird. So they go down in a really weird angle, and they're hard to get used to, but if you can get used to them, this character is kind of like the barbecue corn. You could sit in the back of the map with him and you could chip away at people, and it's pretty obnoxious because it's fire damage. So one bullet, it's going to do 25 extra damage. He's fully automatic as well, so that's really good. The character still does a ton of damage up close, which is cool as well. And then he's just really good at chipping away. He's just good at, setting people on fire. He's similar to the Fire Flower. Nothing else really to say. He loses the Sunflower Heal Flowers because they could cancel out fire damage. Alright, so you're going to notice there's quite a drop. There's no 7 out of 10 All-Stars, and then it goes straight to the 6 out of 10. That's because these two All-Stars are significantly worse than the 8 out of 10 ones. They're still playable, like they're still a 6 out of 10, but they're not very good. Alright, let's start off with the goalie star. So the goalie star, his primary, some benefits, he could shoot for a very long period of time, which makes sense because like why would a cold thing overheat? So yeah, as you can see, kind of like the motocross star, he could shoot for very long. That's really his biggest strength. You can freeze people like up close, but like with all the other all-stars, you could just kill them by the time they're frozen. There's not really a point to freeze someone with an all-star when you have instant kill abilities and primaries that do an insane amount of damage. And then from range, this character's damage output is pathetic and awful. And he's just really outclassed his primary, his booty, and he's just not really worth playing in the slightest. He doesn't do enough damage. Alright, next up is the wrestling star, and this character is just outclassed majorly. The character is very outclassed by even the rugby star, so the character up close is actually really good. He does quite a lot of damage, but he has a slow rate of fire, and then from mid-range he's not very good either. And there's not really a point of using him. He could have been like an armored variant because he's like supposed to be like really strong up close, but he's like weaker than some of the all-stars up close. And there's just not really a point of playing him most of the time. And then from range, he's like one of the worst range characters in the game. So yeah, other than that, like he's just very outclassed. He's still fun to play, but like there's literally no reason to play this character. Overall, most of the all-stars are really good characters, but as I made very clear, some of them are just like very outclassed. Alright, moving on, we have the Citron class, the other big body class in the game. So let's talk a bit about this class and what they're good at. So the Citron class, they have a very, very good ability set. They have, of course, the EM Peach, which is a stun ability, and then they also have the Mood Shield or Peel Shield, which is really good, and then Citron Ball has no cooldown. It's the only ability in the game that has no cooldown. You can go in and out whenever you want, and then the Citron Ball has two abilities, the Speed and then the Citron Ball attack. So very, very useful for mobility. Really good. So this character's primary, most of them are hit scan lasers, so they're not really like projectiles, they just kind of shoot out their lasers, they hit you instantly. Similar to the superheroes kind of, but you have more control over your gun, obviously, because you're not forced to be zooming in like this. But from range, these characters aren't very good. They still do around like 30 damage per second, and of course they're hit scan, so it's really hard to dodge, but like they're not meant to be played at range. There's only one of them that is quite good at range, but overall they have a very, very good ability set, and then most of them have good primaries, but their ability set, high health, is just their main strengths. So let's talk about the Iron Citron, which is the 10 out of 10 Citron. This character is very different than all the other Citrons, but different in a good way, meaning he is better than all the other ones. So the most noticeable aspect about him is he has 50 more health than all the other Citrons, so he is a really tanky character. He is the second most, he's a plant with the second most amount of health right behind the Torchwood. So he could tank so much damage, meaning he's a ball with 250 health and then 260 if you're running the health upgrade, which is optimal health, reload. You could roll around your ball, you have so much health, and then your primary has really good time to kills. It's kind of like the Tank Commander Scuba Soldier situation where 50 damage per shot, so you could 3-shot most of the basic classes in the game, and it's very easy to. You could actually cancel the reload animation by going into the ball and then going out of the ball. It's kind of hard to pull off, but if you could do it, it's a really good tech to use. And then of course he has Iron Mode, which is the best legendary mode in the entire game. It gives him speed and 5 ammo, damage reduction. This character already has a ton of health. Whenever he has Iron Mode, he's like a top 5 character. He's broken with his legendary meter. And then outside of his meter, of course, he has the extra health, which is really nice. So yeah, that's really the Iron Citron. There's nothing really else about him that's really overbearing. But none of the other Citrons reach his level of potential, in my opinion. But these other Citrons are still 9 out of 10 characters. They are really good. Starting off with Frozen Citron, and this is maybe the most anti-meta character in the entire game. The reason I say that is because this is the best tank killer in the entire game by far. No other character reaches this level. So of course he has a beam that's hit scan similar to the regular Citron, so a really good rate of fire. The reason why he's a good tank killer is because he himself is a tank. He can approach a tank, use his ball, and then he can freeze the tank. So for example, a mech, he can freeze them, use his peach, stun them, then freeze them again, and they're going to die. This character, just if you hate mechs, you hate superheroes, you hate all-stars, this character is the best counter, and those characters really can't do anything against this character. And then from range, he could also hit people and slow them down, which is really good and annoying. But this character is a lot of fun, but he is also a really, really, really good counter character. Probably the most counter character in the entire game, if that makes sense. Next up, we have the Party Citron. So the Party Citron, of course, has laser. It's the same as the regular Citron, which we'll talk about shortly, but he can fill up his meter off of shares. He gets extra speed whenever he's in his meter, and he also does more damage. When you have extra speed, by the way, as a Citron, you go in your ball and you use the speed boost, and you go insanely fast. So having the extra speed with the Citron is really nice because they have great movement. And of course you're almost unkillable, so this character does a ton of damage. We'll talk more about the primary when we talk about the regular Citron, but this character's meter is really good. It's really easy to get kills with this character, so you're going to be in the legendary mode a lot. So a very good character, but you're probably wondering, why is the regular Citron also in the 9 out of 10 category? And that's because even though he doesn't have a legendary meter, he's still a really good character. His weapon does a ton of damage. Similar, like I said, I was going to talk about when I was talking about the Party Citron. This character's weapon is really good. Of course, it's really accurate. It does so much damage. You could stun someone and it'll kill any class in the game is going to die to this thing. Great against mechs, great against anything. So this character and the Party Citron both have really good primaries. And then what I said in the beginning with the Citron class really applies to these characters. Alrighty, so I'm recording this part after the fact, so I didn't really give a proper introduction because I just completely forgot while I was recording this video to talk about Electric Citron. So this is made a little bit after, but he is an 8 out of 10 Citron. He's really good. He's very difficult to use. He's very similar to the Ion Citron up close because you could do a simple charge and it does a lot of damage and you can kill people quite quickly, but I do think he's outclassed by the Iron Citron. From range, he's pretty good too, but I do think the Frozen Citron is better at range. But this character is pretty good. His only issue being his projectiles are really tiny and inconsistent, but other than that, this character is phenomenal and he's a great pick. And then you're going to notice that there's an 8 out of 10 and a 7 out of 10 tier that are just empty. And that's because this character is a 6 out of 10, the Toxic Citron. So this character is only a 6 out of 10 because his abilities. If this character had like bad abilities, he would be like the worst character in the game. But since he's a Citron, he has like 200 health still and really good abilities. But this primary sucks. It's so bad. From range, it's awful, but like even worse than all the other Citrons. It's a cloud character like the Park Ranger, but like infinitely worse. If there's a scientist getting healed by a heal station, this character like gets out DPS diffed by the heal station. So if you're getting healed, this character just like can't kill you because he just doesn't do enough damage, especially if you're moving. If you move around, this character just like does no damage. The only use for this character is if you stun someone and then that short period of time they're standing still, but if you just run away from him, he literally can't do anything. He also doesn't have the most ammo in the world. His reload is okay, but you know, this primary is just not good. It's kind of buns. But other than that, the character still has 200 health, still has a stun, still has ball. So he's still a 6 out of 10, but there's no reason to play this character when you could play any of the other Citrons. Alright, moving on to the next class is the Pirate class. Really fun class. They are the sniper equivalent for the zombie side. Alrighty, so let's talk a bit about the class. They have the barrel, which can be useful because it gives you armor. So let's say someone's shooting at you, you need to escape, you could hop in your barrel, and then you can hit the cancel button, hop out of it, or you could click the trigger and go into a group of people, and you could kill them all while having armor and getting a little bit of a speed boost. Of course, you have the drone, which has a good primary, can be good to attack things like chompers, and then the airstrike is really good as well. Cannon Rodeo is actually a really good ability. It's not really talked about too much. It's not useful on the better pirates, but on characters like Captain Squawk and Captain Flameface, it's actually very good. This is one thing where I think the splash is actually really useful. If someone hides behind a corner, which actually happens quite a bit when you're playing a pirate, you could finish them off with the Cannon Rodeo. So that ability is really useful. The pirates also all have shotguns up close, as well as having snipers. So they're very versatile, and all the pirates have a feature where if you zoom in quickly and zoom out and time it perfectly, you could do a thing called a shotgun combo, where you could do that, and it actually does more damage than intended. So you could go shotgun sniper, and it does so much damage. It's better than some of the scientists, which is kind of insane. But yeah, so let's move on to the 10 out of 10 scientists. We have the regular Captain Deadbeard and Captain Cannon, which is my favorite zombie in the game. So regular Deadbeard, he is absurdly good. He has a really fast rate of fire, as well as his shotgun being really good. So both his primary and his secondary are like insanely good. But his primary, his secondary is just like absurd, does so much damage, and it's just like it's nuts. It's kind of overtuned. He also has a ton of ammo. He doesn't really have any losing matchups. His abilities pair with him really well. He's just a very overtuned character. All right, let's move on to the next 10 out of 10 character. Like I said, my favorite zombie, Captain Cannon. I love this character. So Captain Cannon. So this is the final detonation character we're going to be talking about today. So Captain Cannon, he has a fast reload. He has quite a bit of ammo, but his main use is detonation. So you could be far away and you could detonate your shots. He's probably the best detonation character from range. The only problem with him is you are forced to be in ADS when using the detonation shot. So your movement is kind of hindered with him, and you're forced to zoom in when you want to use the best aspect of him. But that goes for all the pirates. So the character is still really good. His shotgun combo is like absurdly good. A lot of people don't talk about it, and then the damage upgrade also helps out his shotgun. So I highly recommend using the damage upgrade. But I love this character so much. He's so fun, and he just does so much damage. He has some of the best group control out of all the zombies. He defeats a lot of characters like roses and sunflowers very easily. He's just a very meta character. He destroys a lot of the plants in the game. So next we have Captain Sharkbite in the 9 out of 10. Now this seems kind of surprising, but the Captain Sharkbite is essentially an alternative of the regular Deadbeard, but he does have a slower rate of fire. But the benefit of him is he does have insane projectile speed. So his projectiles go flying across the map. They are almost hit scan. They move so quickly. It's actually kind of absurd how quick these projectiles are. Even if someone's jumping through the air, you shoot, it's going to hit them. So the projectile speed is definitely the most broken part about this character. His shotgun, it's decent. It only takes up 1 ammo opposed to 2, like all the other Deadbeards. But his shotgun combo isn't that good in my opinion, but his secondary with the fast projectile speed is really, really good. He also has splash, which is not useful unless people are standing next to each other. But Captain Sharkbite is just kind of outclassed by the regular Deadbeard, unfortunately. Alright, next up we got the Captain Flameface. So Captain Flameface is an interesting character, and that's because he is a fire sniper, but there's better fire snipers on the zombie team. As we mentioned before, the paleontologist is a better sniper than him, which is kind of silly, but he actually has a cool gimmick where, not intended, but if you use the shotgun and then the sniper, you actually do double fire damage, so you do 50 damage over time, which is like really useful and really good, but the character doesn't have an ammo upgrade, so he only has 8 ammo, and then he does suffer from drop off like the fire cactus, but of course he does damage over time with the fire damage, so very, very useful. He also has a pretty fast rate of fire, which is nice, faster than Captain Sharkbite, so that's always a plus. But overall, the character is just good at chipping away at people. He's still a good fire character, but you know, he has his uses, but he's kind of outclassed, and there's better fire snipers on the zombie team, as we mentioned earlier. Alright, next up in the 7 out of 10 category, I think all the pirates are still really good because their ability sets and their range capabilities, but these two are just like really outclassed in my opinion. So Party Man, he has less ammo than the regular Deadbeard, he does less damage, and then he does when he has his meter, he is better than regular Deadbeard. He does a lot of damage when he's in his meter, but you know, this character is just kind of strange because why would you want to have less ammo and do less damage? Like, yes, you're going to be getting meter a lot with this character because you're going to be in the back, but there's not really a point to play this character because he is just kind of bad outside of his meter. He does way less damage than your regular Deadbeard, and then you can't be as customizable with upgrades because you're kind of just forced to run the full damage set of the damage, ammo, and reload, so it doesn't benefit too much. And then even then, when he does have his meter, he still has less ammo than the regular Deadbeard, so he is kind of a useless character in my opinion, very disappointing character. He's still a lot of fun to play and he's still viable, but just he's extremely outclassed. Next up we have Captain Squawk. So Captain Squawk is basically the camo cactus of the zombies, except he's not as good as camo cactus, so his accuracy is not as good as camo cactus. He doesn't do as much damage as camo cactus, but he does do toxic damage, which, you know, can be useful to stop people's regeneration. That's really, you know, he has really good projectile speed as well, similar to Captain Sharkbite, but Captain Sharkbite has a better damage output and better accuracy, so there's not really a point of using this character in my opinion. Like, he's the best pirate from extremely far away, but even then, if you could hit your shots, like Sharkbite or Reg is better from far away. But if you're looking to like be really far away, this is a great option. And he still does a lot of damage. He's good time to kills, but yeah. And his primary is kind of interesting. It's similar to the spray chompers or Rody Z. How fast you click. His shotgun is actually pretty good. If you do like shotgun, sniper, like it actually does a ton of damage. But yeah, this character is just outclassed by the Captain Sharkbite very, very, very much, in my opinion. Alright, the next class we're going to be talking about is none other than the Rose class. So the Rose class is an interesting one. So Rose class, let's talk a bit about it. The Roses are very fragile. They only have 100 health. So yes, they have less health than the Sunflowers, which is kind of insane. They have 2 stun abilities with the Time Snare and then the Goatify. And then they also have an ability to kind of run away or finish people off, the Arcane Enigma, Arcane Lotus. I want to talk a bit about the abilities as well. So Arcane Enigma is good if you play more of a close range, I suppose, and you could stall for longer in this. Arcane Lotus is better in my opinion because you can just, you know, go into Arcane Lotus, cancel it, and then get your health back. The Goatifies are also pretty good because if someone's trying to rush you, you could just Goatify and then, you know, they won't be able to attack you. It could also cancel out legendary meter, so this character is really good at dealing with like Toxic Brain, surprisingly, as you could stun him as well as Goatify him. The Psychedelic Goatify also forces people off roofs because it forces you to walk forward. So if someone's on a roof, you could use Psychedelic Goatify them and then they'll be forced to run off, and the Rose excels at having a height advantage. The character also has homing, which is really good, and most of them are actually pretty good up close because they have high splash DPS. The reason I say that is because if you're trying to use them like this up close, they're unusable, they're awful. So if someone's up close, you could kind of just look down and shoot them, but otherwise you're kind of a sitting duck and you're very fragile. Alrighty, let's talk a bit about the best Rose, the 10 out of 10 in my opinion, is the Frost Rose. And this character kind of breaks the rules for all the Roses, and that's because this character basically plays like any other character in the game. The projectile speed is insane, the damage output is insane, and the character also has freeze, so that's another thing that's really good. The thing that's nice about this character is, unlike all the other roses, the projectile speed is really good, so you could just shoot people like any other character in the game, like I mentioned. And then you don't have to rely on homing. With this character, I don't even recommend using the homing upgrade. It's not very useful. But if you do want to finish someone off, you do have the uncharged shots, which is nice. But I highly recommend just using like the tier 1 charges, or even like the high charges tier 3s, because they do so much damage. And they could really finish the job. This character is a great counter and pairs really well with the stun, and is really one of the 2 roses that is a threat, and this is the most versatile rose by far. And the next rose is going to be the neck rose. That was kind of hard to say. Alright, so the neck rose is pretty interesting. So this is probably the best support plant in the game, and that's because this character has the jinx effect, and it makes the zombies take more damage, which is like really busted. And the character is just really good at helping out, but sustaining herself, she's okay, not the best. And then from far away, she is awful. She's only good from that mid-range area, with the homing benefiting her a lot. Up close, she's really bad, but her jinx effect is what puts her in the 9 out of 10 category. Otherwise, you know, she's okay. You could jinx a zombie and then use your uncharged shots, and it does a lot of damage. But the character is outclassed by the Frost Rose if you want to play on your own. But if you are playing with a friend, this is like a really good support character. Alright, moving on, we have the Fire Rose. And this character is also similar to the Frost Rose, as you don't need to rely on homing, because most of the other roses you need to rely on homing. This one you can actually use from far away, because it's a big projectile that does a ton of damage. The reason I'm saying don't rely on homing is because if you're shooting like this from far away, the projectiles are slow, and with all the roses they only do like little amount of damage, and they have bad accuracy outside of homing. So yeah, but this one has fire damage, so even if you are using uncharged shots, it does 25 damage over time, and then with the charge, it does a whopping 50 damage and then 25 extra damage because of the fire damage. So this is a really good imp counter. This is a really hard matchup for the imp. But other than that, the character is just decent. Definitely more viable than most of the roses. Alright, moving on, we have regular rose, which is an 8 out of 10, so still a very good plant. The character is outclassed, however, by the other roses. The reason I say that is because she doesn't have a charge shot, meaning at range, like let's say there's a zombie over there by that rock, that's not good. Only the homing is what makes this primary really good, but primary really good indeed. This character's primary is really strong, doing 10 per shot, and then up close, as you could see, you could kind of look down, this is what I mean, and it still does 10 damage, and it's really useful up close. So if someone tries to rush you, this rose can sustain herself and, you know, still fight. Her projectile speed is pretty good, her rate of fire is pretty good, and her damage output is good, and she takes really good advantage of the rose's abilities. But again, it's just kind of outclassed by the other roses, unfortunately. So next we have the Druid Rose, who a lot of people really like, I noticed, based on comments, but she is kind of a downgrade to the regular rose. She does have a faster rate of fire and more ammo, but her damage output isn't as good. But she's still a 7 out of 10 character, because, you know, she's still decent. She still has great homing, and her damage output is really good. Her pressure is really good. But again, she's a rose, so from far away, like if someone's even like that far away, if anyone's outside your homing range, this character can't do anything, which kind of sucks. So very outclassed, but again, the character has homing, the character has decent damage output, just a average character, definitely not a bad choice. Now we have a 6 out of 10 rose, so again, not an unplayable, but not very good character, the Party Rose. This character really follows in the footsteps of the Captain Party Man. This character does way less damage than the regular Rose, and it's just that it really is meaningful because the extra damage that the regular Rose does is just kind of absurd. So doing less damage than the regular Rose, and also having all the other problems that the regular Rose has, meaning like from far away the character being useless, is really unfortunate. And then up close you're doing less damage as well. So like just the lower damage is just really bad. When you do have meter, the extra speed feels really good, but you're really not doing that much more damage than the regular Rose. So you're kind of sacrificing a lot just to have a meter, when the character still can be killed really easily when in the meter, because Roses are very fragile. Overall, a very, you know, kind of situational class, but let's move on to the imps. So let's talk a bit about the imps. So the imps are really tiny, obviously. So if you master your movement, they're really good. Speaking of movement, they have a double jump, which is really cool, as well as having a fantastic ability set. So they have the gravity grenade, which is maybe the best stun in the game. Maybe Goop surpasses it because of its faster recharge, but this ability is just nuts. I think it's like the second best ability in the game. You could just, especially if you know how to aim it, lock them in place, and most of these imps do like an insane amount of damage. So if you get stunned, you're dead. Imp Kata is a good ability as well. It's really used to finish people off. So let's say there's a peashooter jumping and you're in a tight scenario, you're playing an imp with not good accuracy, you already did like 100 damage on them, you could activate the imp Kata and it'll just lock onto them and it'll finish them off. So really good. So the imps are a very decent class. So let's go ahead and talk about the 10 out of 10 imps first. So the Z7 imp, the first 10 out of 10 imp. The Z7 imp is a character that fires as fast as you can pull the trigger. So similar to the wolfy, except he has more ammo, he has better projectile speed, and he's more accurate. He doesn't have peashooter abilities, however, and he has less health. But this character is potentially sometimes the best zombie in the game. He could stun someone, and if you get stunned by this character, you are going to die. This character does so much damage, it's not even funny. Certain matchups, characters can't do anything, like sunflowers can't do anything about this character. The character is weak to fire damage because it is an imp. All imps are weak to fire damage, but the character is good from all ranges, which is crazy. The character is absurd up close, and then having his mech, which is pretty decent as well, puts him at the #1 spot for the imps. The Z7 Imp's mech is also pretty good. It can fire for an extremely long period of time without having to overheat. It is also very good from long range. So as you see, I'm still firing as I speak, so it takes a very long time to overheat. So you can fire with this thing for super long, and the penalty isn't long at all. The Pull is also a really good ability because it could take people out of rooted abilities, and it's just overall really nice. It has homing, so whenever the reticle turns red, you could use the biotic pull and you could bring things towards you. It also has a fast recharge. The Zomni Blade is not a very good ability. I wouldn't recommend using it. But yeah, the primary does a ton of damage, really strong, and the biotic pull is good too. You also have 350 health, not a bad thing at all. And this mech is really good at corner glitching, so you could, stick the gun out the side and then on certain walls, and then no one can shoot you back. So that's a great tip for this mech. The next 10 out of 10 imp we're going to talk about is the Shrimp. So the Shrimp is an absurdly good character. So let's talk about him outside the mech. Outside the mech, he is very accurate compared to most of the other imps. I'm mainly looking at the party imp and the reg imp here. So from range and mid range, he's very accurate. It kind of feels like you're like, assault rifle, mechanic, reg soldier kind of primary from mid range. So if you like that, I'd highly recommend giving the Shrimp a shot. So you could even, you're tiny, and you could hop around roofs and stuff, and you could really take people out and pick on people with this character. So the reason why this character is a 10 out of 10 though isn't because of him being outside of the mech, is solely because of his mech. He's still like a 9 out of 10 imp if he had like a regular mech, but this mech is potentially the best playable thing in the entire game, and I'll show why. It has a laser, so it hits you instantly, so it has perfect projectile speed, so you can't dodge it. Except it actually does a lot of damage from range, unlike the Citrons and superhero beams. And the main thing is because of this. You can fly across the map with this thing, and it is just absurd. And if you don't move, you can, fly even more. The jumps have a really fast cooldown, and this thing's primary is just so accurate. It could shoot anyone through the air. The water cyclone ability sucks, and it doesn't even matter, but this primary is like, it's one of the best primaries in the entire game, because if there's a peashooter jumping, you could track them. Of course, that takes a little bit more of a skill to use. It may not seem like this mech is super good if you're unskilled, but if you have really good aim, this primary is just like absolutely broken. Alright, so the rest of the imps don't quite reach this level, in my opinion. Let's talk a bit about the reg imp first. So the reg imp has a lot of accuracy issues. He does do 100 damage per second, however, which combined with his stun is obviously really good. So 100 damage per second, he's very good up close, but unfortunately from range, as you guys can see, he has a lot of recoil and bad accuracy. If this character had good accuracy from range, he would be kind of unstoppable. So I'm kind of glad he doesn't have a very good accuracy. So yeah, but overall, he's a decent character, but he is just very outclassed by both the Shrimp Z7 Imp and the Party Imp. Let's talk a bit about his mech. Alrighty, so the regular Imp's mech. So it has kind of mid abilities, and I'll tell you guys why. So the Missile Madness it's a good ability, it does good damage, it has homing, which is cool, but you cannot move, you cannot jump, you cannot eject while using this ability, so you were kind of stuck in it. And being a giant mech, you're going to be getting lasered by P-Gatling and things, and this ability is just not very good. You're better off just using your primary, which does a ton of damage, has a great primary. The mech also has a 90-second duration, which is nice, but I do think the primary is worse than like the Z7 mech and the Shrimp mech by a pretty significant margin. And the mech also just, it doesn't feel, it just feels like a run-of-the-mill mech. And then the Robo Stomp ability is just kind of useless. It's similar to the water cyclone, like you're in that animation for such a long time, and it's not the best mech in the world. It's decent, but it doesn't really have anything too strong about it, unfortunately. Alright, the next imp we're going to be talking about is the Party Imp. This character is essentially a clone of the regular imp. He has more ammo, and then of course he has a meter. So he benefits a lot more from having a close range primary, because with his meter, of course, he can, really get up close and personal in people's faces and have that extra speed and armor that the legendary meter gives you. It's also very easy to get shared kills with this guy. You just got to play a little bit more safe for a little bit, and then you can, go in. I don't recommend going in people's faces with imps. Kind of go around this distance. That's like where that Mr. Toxic is. So around there, this is where this character really excels. And then his mech is pretty good. The problem I have with this mech is it doesn't last very long. It lasts shorter than the regular mech, unfortunately. So it's still better than the regular mech though, because if you have your meter full and then you need one more share, you can actually you can actually get party mode while in the mech, which is pretty cool. But everything I said about the regular mech applies to this one as well. It's just a decent mech, but having the ability to get party mode, which is a glitch, is nice, but it's kind of your standard run-of-the-mill mech. There's nothing really super good about it. But yeah, the Party Imp is a decent character. He's just majorly outclassed by the other imps, in my opinion, but he's still an 8 out of 10 character. It's just these other imps aren't really as good when you compare them to the Z7 imp or the Shrimp, unfortunately. Alright, the next imp we're going to be talking about is Mr. Pylon Imp. So the Pylon Imp has a lot of ammo, and contrary to popular belief, you can actually hold down the fire button with him, even though he's a burst character. The only burst character you can't hold down the fire button with is the Super Commando. So yeah, he has a lot of ammo, and it's very customizable with upgrades, because he's a lot of ammo, and you don't really have to run ammo upgrades or reload upgrades or whatever. double reload, and you could run like health, speed, damage. It's very customizable, so that's a thing this character has. He also has really good kill times and damage output overall. He also has way better accuracy than the regular imp and the party imp, so that's another thing he has going for him. And then he also has the second best mech in my opinion, which is the pylon mech, and the reason for that is it is arguably the only mech that both of the abilities are useful on. And the reason for that is the right ability is a sprint tackle type ability similar to the All-Star, and you could also use it to build up momentum, which is nice, but it's really good at like rushing in. It's really good at, let's say you're on that roof, you could jump and use it to get to the other roof just as a movement option. It's really useful. And then the pylon mines, they're like potato mines, basically proximity mines. You could get, you know, free kills from them. People don't see them, and a lot of people don't see them. So yeah, they're instant kills, which are good. So both of these abilities are really good. And then the primary is also really accurate. It does have kind of a low damage output, but this thing has a really fast reload. And like I said, with all other mechs, you can just kind of like hide behind a corner and stick out your gun, and you could still shoot people without them shooting you. So really, really good mech. The only problem with it being that the primary doesn't do too much damage, and it does have less health at only 300, so that is kind of an issue, but it is the second best mech because it's really fast, both the abilities are good, and the character outside the mech is also very solid. Alright, the next character is going to be the Scallywag Imp. So this character is actually very similar to the Pylon Imp, and that's because he is kind of a burst character. I don't really know how to explain it. He has a really weird kind of rate of fire. He's basically like the commando corn on the zombies, which is kind of interesting because those two characters were introduced in the same update. He's also a legendary character. His meter only takes 3 kills to fill up. You can't get shares, unfortunately, and the meter gives him damage reduction as well as super speed. So his meter is very useful. You're going to be flying around really fast with this character very often, and it pairs really well with the imp's movement. The character is also way more accurate than the party imp from range, which is nice. And his mech is actually pretty good. It has 400 health, tied with the Drake mech as the thing with the most health in the entire game. So it's an absolute tank, but the problem with it is kind of like armor chomper. It has a ton of health, but it's really slow. You know, it's still really good though. So let's talk a bit about it. The peg leg kata, its only use really is if there's a drone in the air, it'll aimbot the drone basically, and then it'll kill it. So that if you don't know that, there you go. The crusty bomb. This is a really good ability. You could just shoot out the bomb and then it'll explode. It's like an imp punt basically. It's more fun to use in my opinion though. And then similar to the pirate class, he has both a shotgun and a sniper. So that's really cool. So you could actually do the technique of the shotgun combo. You could zoom in, use a sniper, and this character does a ton of damage. But this thing is really slow. This thing is really big. It has no mobility, but it does have better abilities than the regular mech, so it is better. And then from range, like the sniper is actually really good. Yeah, this is a decent mech. It doesn't have too much ammo, but you know, up close it's a monster, and then the bomb ability is really good. So yeah, a decent mech. And then of course we didn't talk about it yet, but the mechs have the explosive escape ability, which is pretty useful, especially on the mechs where you get kind of like up close and personal. And the ones that have more health, it's very easy to escape and use the explosive escape ability. How fitting. So the final regular character we're going to be talking about here is Lil Drake. So Lil Drake is also a very good character. He's a fire character. He's pretty similar to the regular imp and the party imp, except if it wasn't obvious, he's way more accurate. Along with him doing fire damage, so you hit one bullet from far away, pretend there's someone on that house over there, I shoot them, and they're going to take 25 damage over time because it's fire. So this character is really good at chipping people. He's second or third best imp from range. Actually, I don't know. All the imps except for Reg and Party are good from range. But yeah, he's really good at chipping away at people. He's a great mid-range character. Even up close, he does a lot of damage. So he's a great pick. He also has a fast reload, and his mech is quite interesting. So let's go ahead and hop into his mech. It is most similar to the Scallywag Imp, but kind of like how I compared the Scallywag mech to the pirates. This thing is kind of similar to the chompers, I suppose. So as I said, it has 400 health, which is a lot. So the right ability, wing flap, it gives you a little bit of a shield and you could tank a little bit more damage, so that's pretty useful. So, and then his other ability is the dragon swoop. So you might notice that I am actually flying, it may seem. So this character actually has extra jumps, so little known fact, you can do that. So I just wanted to show that off because I think it's so cool. But the dragon swoop, it's basically a sprint tackle. It helps you get in and out of scenarios, which with this big thing you're going to want to be able to do. And then this ability is also changed how much you are spamming the trigger, similar to the spray chomper. So this thing has a really high damage output, some of the highest damage in the game. So if you go near this thing, you're going to die. And it's really good at, like, you know, keeping people out of like a objective. If there's like 2 of these things, which always happens by the way at the end of games, like people get their Drake mechs and you just can't do anything. Very aggressive, but unfortunately it is hindered by its range. But both of its abilities are very good. So we're actually going to be doing something a bit interesting. And this wasn't planned, but I'm just going to do it right now. I want to talk about both the hover goat and the torchwood. So the torchwood is very good. The smoldering madness is basically a legendary mode in the form of ability. You can fire absolutely forever. You do fire damage, which isn't affected by drop off. You move faster, and it's just a really busted ability. It is one of the best abilities in the game, and it is easily torchwood's best ability. This thing is insane, and being able to fire forever without having to worry about an overheat is kind of disgusting. It's like peag, but you could move and it does fire damage, and you move extra fast because Torchwood is actually one of the faster characters in the game. So yeah, kind of absurd. Leaf Shield, it's good when you're at higher health and you're playing a mid-range. A lot of people use it when they're at lower health. That's not what you're supposed to do. Use it when you're at higher health and you could tank a lot more things. The character from range struggles a bit. He has a similar primary to the All-Star, but he still has a very good primary, does a ton of damage. And then the Blazing Blast is a great, like, get away from me option. Like, get away. It's just a good, like, zoning tool for up close. Overall, a very solid character. Just he's very big, so he is definitely affected by his large size. So he's very easy to shoot down and kill. The final character is the Hover Goat. So Hover Goat is quite an interesting one. Similar to the Necros, he is a support character, so he can use his laser beam to support people around him and makes them do more damage. So for example, if I use it on this bot will shoot something and it'll do more damage than usual. So that is really good. This is a really good support character. The super speed ability makes you, obviously, gives you super speed, as well as making Hover Goat speed a lot faster. And this character has pretty quick movement for up close movement, but unfortunately air movement, this character isn't very good. As you can see, building up momentum isn't really possible with this character, unfortunately. Mega Awesome Laser is pretty similar to the Smoldering Madness, but it doesn't give you speed, but instead it's a laser similar to like the Shrimp Beam, except it's really good from range. And you could fire it for as long as you want until the ability cools down. If you actually stand still with it, you can fire with it for a longer period of time. And then his regular primary is also really decent. It's like a assault rifle type weapon. Up close it does more damage, but it's still very good from range. Yeah, this is overall a very balanced character, a very good character. It doesn't really have any flaws. He's a good amount of health as well. So yeah, this is a good one. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something, and if you guys watched this far, I recommend liking the video and subscribe, because I make a lot of videos like these. And join the Discord down below. It takes 1 second to hit the like button, and leave a comment what your favorite part of the video was. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye bye.